This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Naruto Had the Power of 4 Eyes. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The Sharingan, Byakugan, Rinnegan, and Saishugan are the four great dojutsu. Numerous other dojutsu are sporadic variations of the originals. However, none of them can really match the four originals. The double-edged sword is the second stage that each of the original four has. Despite their strength, the four great dojutsu cannot blend. No two forms of dojutsu can combine to form a more potent hybrid. Since a dojutsu becomes a permanent part of a person when it activates, it will be passed on to their children. The genetic code will still contain the other dojutsu. However, even if the other dojutsu are in your genetic code, you cannot activate them if you activate one. Every dojutsu has a power and strength that is comparable to the others. The Sharingan is a Uchiha clan dojutsu that can mimic any ninjutsu, genjutsu, or taijutsu, anticipate movements before they occur, hypnotize an opponent with just eye contact, and have a limited capacity to perceive different chakra types through color. Its second stage, where it acquires its four hijutsu, is where its greatest strength is found. The Black Flames of Amaterasu, the Eternal Illusion Tsukuyomi, the Unstoppable Warrior Susanoo, and the Raging Vortex Kamui can all be used by the Mangekyo Sharingan Eye, the pinnacle of the Sharingan cycle. However, killing the person who means the most to you, be it a friend, sibling, parent, or lover, is the only way to obtain the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, once you acquire the Mangekyo, its power will expire. The user gradually becomes blind after gaining the Mangekyo. Even one use of the Mangekyo will hasten the process. Madara Uchiha was the only person who ever managed to get around this. He killed his younger brother and put his brother's eyes in his own because he was so desperate to maintain the power of his all-powerful eyes. He became the first Uchiha immortal, but his power persisted and he never lost his sight. The Byakugan is a Hyuga clan dojutsu that can see chakra in all of its forms at a level far higher than the Sharingan. It can see through solid objects, see things with telescopic vision, and see around oneself in a near full 360 degrees. Similar to the Sharingan, the Byakugan's second stage is its strongest point. With the ability to use the Heavenly Archangel, the Punishing Penance, and the Hellish Wrath, the Raikon Byakugan is the pinnacle of the Byakugan cycle. However, you have to witness the death of the person closest to you, regardless of who it is, and the life leaving their eyes forever in order to acquire the Raikon Byakugan. The Raikon Byakugan is a challenging machine to control. The original personality, the heavenly personality, the punishing personality, and the hellish personality are the four divisions of your personality. The original personality would be forced to spend eternity in purgatory if any of them were allowed to take control without the consent of the individual. The four personalities, however, gradually merge when the eye is used. Once this happens, the personalities die and are never permitted to reincarnate. The only way to prevent this is to mentally defeat each of the three new personalities. This has only ever been accomplished by one person, whose name has been forgotten. However, she wished for this power to never be in the hands of the Hyuga clan. In order to keep the Hyuga from ever being close to anyone, she ensured that all subsequent generations would be aloof and cold. The Rinnegan, a dojutsu belonging to the Uzumaki clan, can use all the elements to make a corpse move again under the user's identity. It also lets one create the 6 paths of Preta, Naraka, human, Deva, Asura, and animal, each of which has its own specialization based on the body used for that path. Additionally, the Rinnegan can transform dead animals into summons, causing them to change and warp into better tools for their intended purpose. Like the other four great dojutsu, the Rinnegan has a second stage that is more potent. The pinnacle of the Rinnegan cycle, the Akuma Rinnegan, is able to use all of the sub-elements, including Hyoten, Mokuton, and Yoden. It can also actually place a person's original soul and bring them back to life, whether in their old body or a new one. No matter who it is, you must kill the person you despise the most in order to obtain the Akuma Rinnegan. Although the Akuma Rinnegan's power has a cost, if you acquire it, you will no longer need to eat, drink, sleep, or perform any other human needs. If you do not, however, you will gradually deteriorate into a crippled heap of flesh, waiting for someone to kill you or wait for your impending death. The Sage of 6 Paths was the only one who managed to get around this. He reabsorbed the power of his 6 paths when he was close to the point of crippling, and instead of being crippled, he was in the ideal body for his age. He wanted to ensure that the knowledge of how to obtain the second level was lost to time, even though he only had one child. Only the Rinnegan, not the Akuma Rinnegan, were known to him. Kushina and Nagato Uzumaki were his last remaining relatives. The Namikaze clan's Saishugan Dojutsu is capable of using pure chakra to a far greater degree than a typical shinobi. They typically lose the ability to use any element that is not part of their natural affinities. Saishogans can force chakra to take on various forms, such as a sword, shield, or even a seal. They can also recognize and break seals as long as chakra has been applied to them. Pure chakra can be used by any shinobi, just like a sword or kunai, but with the Saishugan, it comes naturally to them. The Saishugan has a second stage, the Kurai Saishugan, just like the other 4 great dojutsu. The Kurai Saishugan can manipulate the chakra within a cast jutsu, instantly cast seals that have been broken down by the eye, fire raw blasts of pure chakra with little effort, and warp the energy around oneself to a minimal degree. You have to witness the death of the person you hate the most, as the last remnants of life leave their body, in order to awaken this stage. This stage's curse is that you will always be plagued by nightmares of the faces of people you have killed or witnessed die. You must learn to let go of the past and find comfort if you want to forget these eerie memories and keep yourself from going crazy. Minato Namikaze, the last member of the Namikaze clan, was one who was successful in this endeavor. With his Saishugan, Minato Namikaze developed 2 highly destructive techniques that only another Saishugan wielder could possibly employ. He made the Rasengan, which only his sensei could learn without the Saishugan, and the Hiraishin for his family's own technique. Noitra Namikaze and Hitomi Hyuga are the parents of Minato Namikaze. Even though he was the last Namikaze, his father would not marry for anything other than love, even if it meant that his bloodline would be destroyed forever. He fell in love with the branch family's Hitomi Hyuga. Due to their deaths in the arms of others during the Second Shinobi War, their child was raised as an orphan. For the same reasons as his father, Minato Namikaze activated his father's bloodline but refused to get married for anything other than love. He married Kushina Uzumaki, the last of the Uzumaki clan, after falling in love. Madara Uchiha and Kasari Uzumaki's daughter is Kushina Uzumaki. Kushina was born as a victim of sexual assault. Her father moved to Whirlpool to start over after being banished from Konoha. When a woman named Kasari Uzumaki asked if there was anything she could do to help him, he was so overcome with rage that he broke her arms and legs before raping her. Kushina's mother passed away during childbirth. As the clan heiress, Kushina was never placed in life or death situations and was never able to activate either of her dojutsu. Before he arrived to discover the child he knew was born there, she knew nothing about her father. She was furious and disgusted to learn how she was born. She cut out her father's left eye using the Uzumaki techniques she had learned. Only she survived after her father destroyed Whirlpool and the Uzumaki clan. He sealed her before he left, though, so that even if she passed on her dojutsu, she would never use them. The seal could never be removed unless a seal master used a Mangekyo Sharingan. After traveling to Konoha, she married Minato Namikaze after falling in love with him. Together, the two were unstoppable because they were on the same generation team. They became friends with the heirs of the clan. Although Kushina would socialize and converse with all of her classmates, she flatly refused to approach Fugaku Uchiha. She was unaware that Fugaku was nothing like Madara. All she saw in Fugaku was Uchiha. She gave a thorough explanation of why she did not like Fugaku when everyone, including Fugaku, asked. She described how her father had raped her mother and how her father's genocide in the village had made her the last member of her clan. At the conclusion of the story, the cold-hearted genius Fugaku Uchiha sobbed on his knees and begged her to pardon his relative for his wrongdoings. She accepted his apology after realizing that Fugaku and Madara were completely different, and they all grew close. Within a month of Kushina and Minato's marriage, Minato was given the name Yondaime, and within 2 months, Kushina and all of their friends announced they were expecting a child. They are extremely happy. They all formed alliances within the clan. The clan head's 9 was their self-name. They sort of planned it out so that they would all have kids around the same time. The only people without children 9 months after the declaration were Kushina and Hiyoshi's wife. On this day, Madara Uchiha gave the Kyuubi the order to attack the village. A newborn child was the only object that could contain the demon, and Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze was the only newborn that day. Sealing the demon was the only way to stop the Kyuubi. Following the sealing, Kushina was left in a coma under the guard of the most reliable Hyuga, while Minato passed away, and the demon his grandfather sent to destroy the village turned into Naruto's unwilling host. This is the start of our story. Although Naruto Uzumaki was capable of activating the Rinnegan, Sharingan, Byakugan, or Saishugan, his ability to do so was hampered by Kyuubi's chakra inadvertently leaking into his system. His bloodlines never activated, regardless of how many times he was in a life or death situation or how many times he was beaten close to death. During Naruto's first Circa rank mission, everything changed. Thanks to the very demon that tormented him, Naruto accomplished something that was previously thought to be impossible during this mission. He became the sole surviving member of the most potent Eye bloodline to date. Look, here is Naruto, one of the 4 dojutsu. They weren't supposed to fight ninjas or be attacked by anyone other than bandits, but they did. It was supposed to be a straightforward C rank that brought Tazuna the bridge builder to wave. Zabuza Momochi attacked them after the missing nin, known as the Demon Brothers, first attacked them with their fists. He had been vanquished by Kakashi Sensei, but before he could kill him, a female hunter nin, who was actually his accomplice, took him away. They believed they were prepared because they had spent the entire week training to battle Zabuza, but they were far from it. Surrounded by ice mirrors, Naruto Uzumaki stood on the bridge, clutching his best friend's dead body. Is this the first time you have seen a loved one die in battle? Is this the first time your heart has been wrenched out of its chest? Said the fictitious hunter nin. Naruto simply stood there, clutching the body of the Uchiha clan's final devoted male prodigy. No, Naruto had witnessed the death of a loved one before, and this was not the first time his heart had been torn from his chest. How vividly he recalled that incident. It would linger in his mind until the day he died. Rewind. Naruto was sitting outside in the rain on October 10th, clutching the icy body of a young girl with dazzling blonde hair and piercing green eyes. She had a wound that was slowly and painfully killing her. Her name was Chiyo. A tall, blue-haired man who had lost his wife in the Kyuubi attack. The culprit was a former Anbu with a focus on assassinations and detested Naruto for possessing the monster. How does it feel, demon, to see someone close to you die? Feel my pain before I do the same to you, monster. The crazed shinobi yelled. All the anger and hatred that Naruto had suppressed for years finally surfaced as a surge of rage inside of him. He attempted to harm the bastard by killing an innocent person because he wanted to kill him, and he would die. Unaware of his attack, Naruto rushed at the man and yelled, "You bastard, I'll fucking kill you." The man thrust the kunai into Chiyo's arm, and Naruto stabbed it straight into his heart. Gazing into the eyes of the man who killed the person he loved most, Naruto pushed the kunai farther into his heart. He detested the man more than he had ever detested anything or anyone before. So be it, he had put up with Konoha's animosity toward him. However, he would perish if he injured Naruto's sole companion. Naruto observed as the bastard shinobi's eyes, filled with fear and craziness, gradually lost their vitality. Join your family in hell, you son of a bitch. Naruto pushed the kunai into his heart one last time while he watched his eyes lose their last remaining life. Naruto got to his feet and sprinted back to Chiyo. No, Chiyo, don't die, please don't die, don't leave me alone. Naruto, please, I don't think I can make it, Naruto, please, kill me, Chiyo said, glancing up at Naruto. Chiyo, please don't ask me to do that, we can still, Naruto, I'm dying, please end this pain for me, please. Naruto was appalled, unable to kill his beloved. Chiyo was in pain, and Naruto couldn't bear that, even though he couldn't believe what she was asking him to do. He reluctantly lifted the blood-stained kunai and said, "Kami Sama, forgive me," before piercing her heart to hasten her demise. Naruto never turned away, fulfilling Chiyo's last wish. Naruto.kun. Naruto turned to see Chiyo's stunning green eyes, feeling the life drain from them. Let me look into your eyes, let me have the sight of our eyes be the last thing I see. He saw the life drain from the person he loved the most, the one he had killed to put an end to her suffering. As the rain pelted his streaked face, Naruto swung his head back and roared to the thunderclouds. No. Around them, lightning smashed as he let out a dejected cry. Even at the age of 11, Naruto would never forget what he had done. It would always be a part of his nightmares. Kai flashback. Just as he had held Chiyo just a year before, he was now holding his precious person. As the red chakra bubbled around him, he could feel the cold, dead body of his rival and self-adopted brother, and he could feel the white-hot tears streaming down his face. How he wished he could harm the fucking hunter. Bitch, how he wished she endured the consequences of killing his brother. He had no idea that the very demon that made the damn villagers despise him was fulfilling his wish at that precise moment. Simultaneous mindscape. After more than a dozen years of imprisonment in the boy, Kyuubi, the Kitsune's heiress and the most powerful demon outside of the Kitsune clan leaders, was disgusted. She looked at her host's life when she woke up, just a few minutes ago. Because that three-time damned Uchiha had made her attack a village with which she had no dispute, she witnessed every beating he had received. Kyuubi cried to herself, hating herself for causing such pain to an innocent person. They condemn a child for something he did not control, all because of me. Kyuubi thought that maybe she could give him a bloodline, but that would turn him into a Hanyu. I will make it up to him, but how? Hating herself for not being able to make it up to her, she sobbed even more. She looked at his family history after noticing something, and her tear-stained face broke into the biggest foxy grin. She decided to put that thought out of her mind and activated Naruto's bloodlines and the 4 great dojutsus, giving them a means of finally becoming compatible. I just may have found a way to start making up my debt to you, Naruto-kun. Where the fuck did the kun come from? Not content to stop there, she ensured that Naruto had all the power he could obtain from the dojutsu because she believed that Uzumaki Naruto was the only one who deserved it. Unfortunately, she chose to trigger the last stages by forcing Naruto to physically relive the memory of his friend's death. Naruto-kun, please forgive me for causing you this pain. I feel my debt to you will never be repaid, but I will do whatever I can to make your life better. She poured her chakra over the prepared product to purify the dojutsu, knowing that each one had a limited use. Satisfied with her completed project, she painfully started the activation process. Well, I may have been able to keep him from making it impossible to use the eyes, but they will still have their downsides. At least the downsides are now only chakra-based. She started the procedure without realizing that her tampering had broken the seal that bound her, saying, Naruto-kun, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me for the pain I am about to cause you. Naruto is back. Naruto started to experience mild pain in his eyes and forehead while he was crying, but it quickly escalated into a pain that was much worse than any beating he had ever experienced. He could feel the flesh separating and blood streaming down his face, his eyes burning, and 2 cracks in his forehead, both directly above his eyes. He gripped his forehead, feeling the flesh encircling 2 holes like an eye socket. He then touched the inside of the holes and felt the blood building up, solidifying, creating some kind of flesh object. He screamed in agony as his own chakra mixed with the red chakra he recognized as belonging to the 9-tailed foxes, but he was unaware of the chakra forming close by as it started to take the shape of a solid, human-like object. All he experienced was unbearable pain, followed by what sounded like sorrowful tears and the sensation of arms encircling him from behind. He experienced the pain gradually subsiding until it was gone. When he finally looked down into his pool of blood and tears, he saw his reflection. A 4-eyed blonde staring back at him, and turned around to see the face of what might have been the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Thus, Naruto of the 4 dojutsu was born. Lastly, because of Kyuubi's manipulation, I was unable to write about how Naruto can employ all 4 of the eye techniques, each with its own set of disadvantages. Naruto was shocked to learn that he had 4 eyes when he had only 2. How on earth did that occur? He felt a barrage of projectiles coming in from his right and left sides, so he had no more time to think about this. He leapt to his feet and knocked the senbon away. Wait, what? The class dobi who was unable to hit the target's center at the academy had knocked away a senbon? Haku then put her hand in a half-tore seal and sent hundreds of ice needles in Naruto's direction, saying, I don't know how you managed to do that, but it won't help you. I will fulfill my purpose to Zabuza Sama. He hunkered down and awaited the assault after realizing there was no way to avoid it. It never materialized. When he looked up, he saw a young, red-headed woman who was likely only a year older than him. Her body was covered in needles that had nearly struck him. You bitch! Naruto's anger boiled up, and he turned to face Haku, but before he could move an inch, the ice in the mirrors shattered. What the fuck just happened? Naruto was perplexed. He blocked a bunch of senbon before he even saw them, and then, by simply looking at the user, he seemed to have shattered a Kekkei Genkai. Then, black flames appeared in his eye. How the hell did I do that? With Zabuza and Kakashi, both of them witnessed Naruto's actions, and Kakashi pondered how he could have broken a Kekkei Genkai. Zabuza couldn't understand how this Gaki had defeated his daughter's Kekkei Genkai. They gazed at Naruto until he raised his head to face them. They were both astonished and frightened. Naruto had 4 eyes now, and they were all unique. The 4 great dojutsu were in Naruto's eyes. The Sharingan was in the eye above his original right eye. The Saishugan was in the eye below his Sharingan. The Byakugan's white eye was now in Naruto's original left eye, and the eye above his Byakugan. He didn't know what it was, but it had a single small black pupil and was encircled by various rings. Perhaps someone else would be aware of it once they returned to Konoha. But why in the world did Naruto have the Saishugan? He realized that the only person he knew who had that eye was Minato-sensei. Zabuza was completely perplexed. It was simply not possible for a mere genin to defeat Haku, and no one could ever break her Kekkei Genkai. Zabuza finally understood what the devil had happened as he gazed at the child. The child was in their second stage of the four-grade dojutsu. He accomplished this by using the second stage of the Rinnegan, which gave some degree of control over the sub-elements. However, how could this child have possessed all four of the grade dojutsu? Anyone familiar with the dojutsu legends would have known that they were incompatible. When he saw the child turn to face the now frightened Haku, he stopped thinking about this. No one hurts his daughter, so he hurried to the boy to protect him. He would not allow his daughter to be harmed. Fuck his missing nin bluster. Naruto is back. Naruto approached the now frightened girl after turning his head in her direction. He sensed someone approaching him when he was just a step away. He stopped what looked like a heavily used guillotine by raising his arm and charging chakra into it out of pure instinct. He glanced at Zabuza before turning back to face Haku. What was odd was that when he looked into her eyes, he realized the truth about her, that Sasuke was still alive. He pushed Zabuza back with the sword and let go of the guillotine. The red-haired girl blushed to Hinata. Style red when he approached her and lifted up her injured bridal style. Apparently, she liked him. Indeed, Naruto was aware that Hinata liked him and that he liked her in return, but he was worried about what would happen to her if she started seeing the Kyuubi brat. Naruto started to move in the direction of Kakashi-sensei when he heard applause. He turned to see a short, stout man standing in front of what appeared to be roughly 300 thugs brandishing axes and katanas. Assuming the identity of Gato, Naruto said, well, it seems that the so-called demon of the mist can't even beat some four-eyed genin freak. No matter, my thugs should be able to kill all of you, then gave the three girls on the bridge a seductive smile, adding, but I think I'll keep the little girls, they would definitely prove an exotic fuck. The other thugs licked their lips in preparation for the potential rape of the girls. Gato pointed to Tsunami and her son being dragged up in chains behind him and said, oh by the way Tazuna, you might want to hand yourself over, especially when I have this. No, I need a plan. How can I get them out of there if they are surrounded by over 300 thugs, but what, if only I could take out all those thugs without hurting Tsunami or Inari. Naruto was about to run forward when he paused to think. He turned to face the thugs and noticed Kakashi staring at him with wide eyes. However, he saw what seemed to be a swirling mass dragging anything it could grab onto when he turned to face the thugs. He witnessed the blood gushing out of the vortex as the thugs began to lift off the ground and were then dragged straight into it, where they were shredded. This process continued until only Gato, Tsunami, and Inari remained on the bridge. Gato turned to face Naruto, who was sprinting toward him, followed by a furious Kubariki brandishing a Zabuza and a Chidori. Charged Kakashi. What the fuck did you do to my menu? Ah. Naruto kicked Gato into the air before he could even blink, and before he could hit the ground, Zabuza leapt into the air, severing his hip in two. The last thing Gato saw was a ball of lightning thrust into his face. Not realizing how much chakra he used using all four of the great dojutsu's final stages, Naruto collapsed to his knees, exhausted, saying, shit, that took a lot out of me. Hey Kakashi. Sensei, can I get a little help here? Kakashi was astounded to learn that Naruto possessed the Byakugan, the Saishugan, and several other dojutsu in addition to the Sharingan. His Sharingan had changed into a pinwheel shape, which was the most amazing thing of all. Naruto had the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto's Mangekyo resembled Itachi Uchiha's, but it was slightly different. It was shaped like a three-point curved shuriken, with a smaller petal arrangement appearing inside each groove that separated the points. Although Kakashi was aware of the Mangekyo Sharingan's immense power, he questioned which of Naruto's parents possessed it. Kakashi chose to put that idea out of his mind. When he went to assist Naruto, he was shoved aside and witnessed Tsunami and Inari, both crying, embrace Naruto. Tsunami sobbed as she buried her face in Naruto's consoling embrace. Thank you Naruto-kun. Thank you. If you hadn't killed those monsters we would have been tortured and sold as slaves. I would have been separated from my only child to be used as a sex slave. After 3 hours, at Tazuna's together with Zabuza, Haku, and the now identified Kakashi, Kyuubi, Team 7 had reached the house with Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari. To the chagrin of Sakura and Sasuke as well as the joy of Kyuubi, Naruto had overexerted his chakra and had to be carried. Before the questions began, Naruto's weary body had just been placed on the couch. When he saw the Kyuubi, Sasuke was as perplexed as ever. Alright Kakashi. Sensei, why the hell does Naruto have 4 eyes, why are the missing nin that tried to kill us here, and who the fuck are you? He was impressed that he was able to compete with the 100 nin and was happy that he had used his Sharingan. Sigh. Kakashi was at a loss for words to describe this without violating any S-class rules. Would he be breaking any laws if he said, Naruto has all 4 of the great dojutsus because he had the Kyuubi sealed inside of his body? Kyuubi chose to speak just as he was about to do so. Sakura and Sasuke were perplexed. What was Kakashi unable to divulge? Kakashi.san, I will explain, you can't reveal some of the information that they need. Everyone except Kakashi was taken aback when he said, now to begin I will tell you who I am. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The demon that had destroyed their village was standing in front of them. However, she exuded kindness and gentleness. I am sorry for what I did over 12 years ago, I was not myself. A Uchiha by the name of Madara, he used the power of the eternal Mangekyo to gain temporary control of me and forced me to attack the village. I was imprisoned inside Naruto by your Yondaime. I never wanted to attack the village. I woke up after 12 years and viewed my host's life. How can humans treat their young so horribly? He was beaten to death on his 5th birthday. How can they be so cruel? Kyuubi broke down in tears. Tsunami was doing her best to comfort her. Sakura and Sasuke were horrified. Why weren't Naruto's wounds healed if he had received such terrible treatment? Tazuna, horrified that someone could do such a heinous thing to a child, asked, Kakashi, if what she says is true, why aren't there any scars? The reason Naruto wears that jumpsuit is because it was layered with hundreds of genjutsu seals that never fade thanks to the special cloth in it. Naruto has scars covering every part of his body. He has been beaten by most of Konoha's population. Naruto put up with the horror of Sasuke and Sakura. They took off Naruto's bright orange jumpsuit and transformed him into his sleeping form. After they were done taking it off, Naruto's sleeping form shimmered, revealing hundreds of scars all over his body. A sharpened kunai knife carved a large scar in each of the places where Naruto's whisker marks were. They noticed a diagonal scar on Naruto's chest that ran from the top of his left shoulder to just below his hip. Additionally, they noticed burn marks that appeared to be caused by Kaden Jutsu. When they turned Naruto onto his back, it appeared as though the Kyuubi no Kitsune had been carved into his back with white-hot kunai knives, but the majority of the burns were now just rough skin. They examined his right arm to demonstrate how it had been severed and then later put back together. With tears in her eyes and Sasuke trembling like a leaf, Sakura fled the room because she could take no more. Tazuna was furious, saying, Kakashi, is this how your village treats its heroes? He saved your village by holding this demon, no offense, in his navel, and they beat him for something he couldn't control. I'm wondering if we should ever hire from Konoha again after seeing what they did to a child. A child, no older than 12, had been beaten because he was a prison for a monster, narrow-minded fucks. The sound of grinning signaled that Naruto was now waking up. Sakura and Sasuke stared at Naruto and said, my head hurts like hell, damn it. And when Haku saw Naruto's toned chest, he blushed. Sakura gave him a mirror and asked, why are you guys staring at me? Naruto was hyperventilating when he looked into the mirror and saw 4 eyes staring back at him. Thanks Sakura-chan, he said. I thought that was a dream. Tsunami ran across the room and began massaging his back in an attempt to calm him down. In between breaths, Naruto asked, what the fuck happened to me? Kyuubi stepped forward and started to give an explanation. Naruto saw that Kyuubi was telling the truth when he looked into her eyes after she finished her explanation. The question that everyone was wondering was then posed by Naruto. I forgive you. Kyuubi, wearing an uncomfortable smile, asked everyone, why the hell do I have 4 eyes? Before explaining that she had analyzed his DNA and discovered a way to make the dojutsu work together. In addition, his second stage now only had serious negative effects if he used all of Kyuubi's remaining chakra in her body or overexerted it. Ultimately, Naruto performed a Hinata-like move similar to feint. Thump. Kyuubi grinned broadly as she glanced from Naruto to the other members of the group. The fact that the Kyuubi was barely different from a teenager made everyone perspire. I think he took that rather well. Late that night, Kyuubi and Haku stalked down the stairs to sleep on either side of the now 4. eyed Uzumaki after leaving the room to go to bed. Even though Naruto had slept well, his head was still splitting when he woke up. He would undoubtedly need to find a method to employ his new dojutsu techniques without going overboard. However, he was going to struggle to find a way to conceal them. Yes, that is what would probably happen if he did not find a way to bring this to the council. He could only imagine the villagers' reactions. Oh god, the demon shows its true colors. Let's kill him instead of understanding him while praising the man who made his life hell. Unfortunately, he had no way of proving it without any living relatives. Naruto had no idea that the woman who had saved his life was coming out of a 12-year coma. Hyuga Hospital is heavily fortified. After a 12-year hibernation brought on by birth stress, Kushina Uzumaki was finally waking up and opening her eyes. She believed she had been asleep for a few days, but she had no idea how long she had been asleep. I wonder where Minato.koi is. I can't believe I have been asleep for the past few days. She wanted to hug her husband and her child, saying things like, "Oh my god Naruto. WHO has been breastfeeding him, I have to find," but her yelling was interrupted when the door to her room opened and a shaky-looking man in his 40s who looked a lot like Heishi appeared. The old man jumped at her and gave her a bone-crushing hug. Hi, I just need to get out of here. Do you know where my son is? He was born a few days ago and I was wondering could you please stop staring at me? It's kind. Kushina, she exclaimed. Kushina was perplexed. The elderly man knew her and appeared relieved to see her. Whoa there old-timer, I don't swing that way. The old man's forehead appeared to twitch as he said, "Who the hell are you? Are you an older relative of Heishi? Baka?" Kushina was shocked to see her old academy friend Heishi in his 40s. "Kushina, it's me, I'm Heishi." He was just 29 years old when she last saw him. She asked the question that was now bothering her after gradually calming down. "Heishi, how long have I been in a coma?" "Kushina, you have been in a coma for nearly 12 years, Heishi said, sensing that Kushina would not take this well. It was too unbelievable for Kushina to believe. She had been in a coma for nearly 12 years, missed her son's first birthday, missed breastfeeding, and possibly missed his academy graduation if he chose to enroll. She uttered just one word, "Naruto. Naruto is back." He was awakened by Naruto's, "Achoo," sneeze. He thought of the villagers and thought, "Someone must be talking about me." Even when he left the village, he appeared to be subject to their wrath. The urge to use the restroom interrupted his thoughts of the villagers, so he decided to get up, knowing that holding it would make it worse, until he abruptly realized he was immobile. He tried to wriggle free to turn his head to the left and see the Kyuubi, in a panic, fearing that he was going to be tortured in some way. So last night he wasn't dreaming. He attempted to go in the opposite direction and saw Haku. Naruto was now quite perplexed. He had two very attractive girls curled up against his chest under his blanket, and he didn't know what to do. Haku moaned in her sleep as he attempted to move his hand after it brushed against something. Startled by the obvious pleasure in Haku's groan, he peered beneath the low covers to discover Kyuubi wearing nothing at all, while Haku was dressed in a very thin silky nightgown. He could now appreciate Haku-chan's exquisitely fair skin, which appeared to be as pure as the purest snow. Her soft skin was perfect, without a single flaw. Additionally, Kyuubi-chan's skin was rather lovely. Her skin tone was slightly tanned, giving the appearance of a gorgeous burnt tan. Its texture was a little rougher, but it felt incredibly soft to the touch. Now, Naruto was waking them up by unconsciously massaging both of their skins. When Haku and Kyuubi awoke, Naruto was caressing their skin. They blushed at the realization, then smiled mischievously at one another. The phrase, "So Naruto thinks we feel nice, why don't we return the favor?" was seen in the eyes of both people. Naruto had no idea what he was doing until he felt Haku's hot breath on his ear, which gave him a delightful chill. The obvious sensual question was made even more sensual by Haku grinding her hips into Naruto's thigh, which caused her to moan even louder. "Na.ru.to.kun, does my soft supple flesh feel good to you?" she asked. "What about me? Na.ru.to.kun, doesn't my flesh?" Kyuubi asked, grabbing his hand that was massaging her back and guiding it to her sternum, which was situated between her impressive C-cups. "Does my flesh please you?" she asked. She pressed his hand into each of her breasts, letting out an ecstatic groan. Both girls asked, their eyes full of sensual lust, "Don't we please you?" Naruto was unable to handle it. He was accustomed to being beaten on his birthdays, eating food tainted with poison, and even stabbing himself almost to death. At the moment, his body was being used as a pleasure toy by two very attractive girls. With no other choice, he took the first action that occurred to him. "Ah!" was Naruto's cry as he leapt from the foldable bed and landed on the ceiling fan nearby. He was attempting to stop a nosebleed, as indicated by a trail of blood. After exchanging glances, Kyuubi and Haku started laughing. They did not anticipate that their flirting would result in their attraction to the four-eyed blonde. They laughed until the wall between the kitchen and living room collapsed, revealing a Sharingan with Kakashi, a Kubariki with a Zabuza and bunny slippers, and Sasuke with both eyes open and wearing a shirt that read, "I love tomatoes." Their discovery could not have been more unsettling. Haku and Kyuubi were wrapped in a blanket that appeared to have been recently thrown off, either naked or in skimpy attire, and Naruto was hanging from the ceiling, muttering about overly sensual girls, and how he wasn't a arrow, Shigen. The twitching Naruto that had just been removed from the ceiling by a very proud looking Kakashi caught Zabuza's attention as he glanced at his daughter. Zabuza dreaded this, wondering why her mother couldn't do this. Haku, I think it's about time we had. Yes, she was waiting for them in Konoha. The talk. Alongside Kakashi is incredibly proud of his pupil. He had fallen asleep with two incredibly beautiful women. Well, technically one was a powerful demon, but not the kind of sleep you perverts get. However, he appeared to be attractive to both girls. Additionally, he might be subject to the Clan Restoration Act, which would require him to have multiple wives, given his new bloodline. He knew that Kushina would kick his ass for corrupting any children, so he said, Kushina. Sama would so kill me for the way I am going to corrupt my student. Alongside Kushina had just stopped crying when an odd feeling jolted through her body. Overprotective mother senses, tingling. She resumed sobbing when the word, mother, was mentioned, despite Heishi and his wife's attempts to soothe her. Natara, a refugee from the Hidden Rain village, was a stunning woman. Her hair was a gorgeous violet, and her eyes were a lovely mauve. Hinata and the Byakugan could almost be identical if Hinata didn't have short hair. Despite being taller than the other, one of them was fiercely protective of her husband. The majority of women in Natara's family struggle with possessiveness of what they claim as theirs. When it came to Naruto, Hinata appeared to have possessed that quality. Kushina had just been informed of Naruto's ordeal, including the most recent beating. That her son survived all of that was unbelievable to her. Kushina was upset and asked, why didn't you take him in Heishi? Why did no one take him in? According to the agreement between their clans, the other would help out if one of their own was in danger. Why wasn't Naruto taken in by any of her friends? Kushina, we tried everything we could to adopt Naruto. But the civilian council and the elders managed to block us at every turn. We managed to hold enough power to keep Naruto from getting executed. But that was as far as we could go. Now trembling with anger, Kushina said, the council tried to have my son executed? Her voice was so venomous that it frightened everyone in the room. Those fuckers are dead. Do you hear me? Dia aadd? Kushina immediately went for the clothes that had been on her bedside, pressed a seal her husband had put on it, and took out her special friend. She was now carrying the same blade she had used to kill 117 Iwa and Kumo shinobi that were invading Konoha. She was going to use the same blade that earned her the moniker Red Death, to take down the idiots who attempted to kill her child. She started straight for the door before Natara and Heishi seized her by the arms. After 12 years in a coma, Kushina was struggling and said, let go of me, I'm going to kill those bastards. No Kushina, you can't go out here and kill, fuck you HIASHI. I can't believe you would allow these monsters to go on living after what they have done. Have you never wanted to hell my son? I have wanted to kill the fuckers who dare call themselves human beings for so long. The Hyuga elders and I, the branch house even, were ready to go out and kill half the village for what they did to Naruto, but before we could even leave the compound, Naruto found out about our plan. He begged Kushina. He begged us to not hurt the villagers. He begged on his hands and knees to forgive them. We wanted so badly to go out and kill every person who harmed him Kushina, but we saw that doing that would only hurt him more than he already was. Once she gave up. How was Kushina perplexed? How could he stand them after what they have done? Kushina. This time spoke for Natara. For some reason or another he sees the village as precious to him. He often talks about how great his family must be, but he sometimes wonders if they abandoned him. If he saw you, his own mother, after so long, kill every villager who had ever wronged him. Naruto would go insane. He would more than likely run away from the village and hang himself for the dogs to eat, before coming near you. The conflicting emotions just would not process properly in his brain. Kushina said nothing. She was correct. Her child would kill himself to end his mental suffering if he witnessed her murdering his own mother or anyone else he considered valuable. Kushina started crying because she felt like a complete failure as a mother. Naruto is back. Just now, Kakashi Sensei had finished giving him the talk. Did Sensei really need to consult his damn perverted book? Naruto was not doing much better when he watched Haku and Zabuza leave the room before she turned a bright red when she saw him. He was unable to follow the instructions of Kyuubi, Sakura, Tsunami, or Haku without covering his nose to stop a nosebleed. After entering his room, he made the decision to look through his closet. He was still wearing the same, Kill Me Orange, jumpsuit, which he cherished because it was the first and only present he had ever received, not because it was orange. He was aware that it came from Kurenai and Anko, who had always watched out for him as a child. He was aware that they thought he was cute because he saw a strange sparkle in Hinata Chan's eyes every time he looked into theirs. He realized that Naruto was loved by both the Snake Mistress and the Genjutsu Ice Queen, but why? With Anko and Kurenai, Achu was sneezed by both of the attractive women seated at the table. Kurenai responded, "Whoa, someone must be talking about us," and said, "I wonder if it's Naruto.kun. No. Bad Kurenai. He's 8 years younger than you." But still, Kurenai was depressed because she had fallen in love with Naruto when she and Anko made him that orange jumpsuit when he was 7 years old. At the time, she was only 15, so she was unaware that spying on someone so young in the shower was wrong. She felt ashamed of herself after learning of the pedophilia occurring on the opposite side of the village. She made an effort to ignore her feelings for Naruto, but she was unable to do so because she had fallen in love with the blonde fox boy. Anko was in a similar situation. She recalled falling in love with a young Gaki who was 6 years her junior. She recalled that she still had her innocence because of Naruto. Rewind. Anko was on her way to her new apartment after the Hokage ruled her innocent of being a traitor. She was seized by the arm and flung into an alley as she was ready to unlock the door. The faces of the council members who were determined to have her executed were visible to her when she looked up. Their smiles were extremely lecherous. The 3 councilmen, who were likely in their late 30s, were moving toward Anko, who was no older than 10. So the snake whore thought she could walk home alone without being assaulted. "You may be allowed to live by Hokage's word, but we are still going to punish you. But we are going to have lots of fun out of it." Anko was afraid, really afraid. The fat and inebriated council member began to move closer to her, saying, "I'm goin' go furs. ITHNSI Ned's a good fuck." However, a bright blonde flash tackled him to the ground before he could get to her. The street rat with the blonde hair, who appeared to be no older than 4, then punched the councilman in the face with enough force to cause significant harm. "You bastard. Smash. How? Smash. Dare. Smash. You. Smash. Do. Smash. Something. Smash. So. Smash. Disgusting. Smash. You. Smash. Lolicon." The blonde Gaki then grabbed the councilman's hair and, using his body on adrenaline, threw the jerk into a number of trash cans across the alley. The other 2 councilmen charged at Naruto as he was ready to go finish the fat ass. She took a nearby trash can and threw it at their heads, causing them to crash into the brick wall and instantly dying. She didn't want to watch him get hurt, before she could notice that the blonde Gaki had been flung across the alley with a kunai embedded directly next to his heart. He began to get up. "I was going to let y'all live aftri fuck y'all. BTTSMSI ain't having that luxury. Ani ls wors before I, The fat counselor then rushed over to her and grabbed her by the throat. His statement was cut short when the blonde Gaki sliced at his ankles, causing him to topple over. Anko was too stunned to move after falling. Adrenaline does amazing things, but the blonde grabbed a nearby wrench that appeared too large for him to possibly pick up. Then he grabbed a couple of kunai and stabbed the portly man in the hands. PLZ ha. Ha. Have M. Mercia. To prevent him from writhing, a kunai knife was thrust into his back. Blondie lifted the enormous wrench above his head and drove it down squarely on that jerk's head. "You begged me for mercy when you were about to rape her. I got a news flash for ya. I'm all out of mercy. Die you fucking bastard," Blondie said. No crunch. The man's body was still twitching even though the wrench had crushed his skull. Naruto fell backwards with his eyes wide open as he realized what was happening and what he had done. Blondie struggled to stay upright. Anko was crying now. "Hey Gaki, thump, Gaki. Shit kid, don't you die on me, don't die." This Gaki, who had no idea who she was putting his life in danger to protect her innocence. "GRNNN," was the blonde's opening cry. With his eyes beginning to flutter once more, he said, "Yes, okay kid my name's Anko, what's yours?" "Gaki, what.is. your name?" The blonde girl, who could hardly speak, said, N.Naru.T.to, my name is Naruto. Anko was relieved that the Gaki could speak. "Okay good, now Naruto, I need you to stay awake for me, can you do that?" Ank was terrified that Orochimaru had taught her only combat jutsu. Her knowledge of medical jutsu was limited. Naruto nodded for her to proceed, saying, "Look, Naruto, I'm going to administer some first aid, this will hurt okay?" Her first task was to tear the kunai knife out. As she tore it out, she glanced at the Gaki, and he hardly batted an eye. It was horrifying to think that he could hardly feel a kunai being torn from his chest. What have you gone through to become so strong? She had no more time to think about this. She needed to tend to the wound. For the next 5 minutes, she applied pressure and made quick stitches in the skin to slow the bleeding. A young Iruka discovered the alley and saw the three bodies, the blood-covered Anko, and the demon Brad not even a minute after the stitching was completed. When she saw the sneer Iruka was giving the boy, she instantly pulled him to her chest. "Give the demon Brad over so we can finally put an end to this monster because he has killed people." Iruka's statement was interrupted when Anko struck him across the bridge of his nose with the same kunai knife that was in Naruto's chest. "No, he saved me. He's a fucking demon girl. He killed my parents. He has to die before, / Not another word. This was not the typical Anko. Instead of being frightened and obedient, she was ruthless and cold, a true shinobi, driven by her desire to defend the person who had saved her life and innocence. Two Anbu appeared and started to attack her before she could hurt the scarred genin again. Because she didn't trust anyone tonight, she brought Naruto closer to her chest and kept a kunai handy in case something went wrong. The silver-haired Anbu member attempted to free Naruto from her hold, but she resisted, saying, "Ms. Midarashi, we need to take him to the hospital. Please Anko, we need to." "No, I am going with him. I am not letting him get hurt." The two Anbu exchanged glances before nodding, and the big bear masked Anbu picked up Anko and Naruto, holding them both tightly before they leapt off into the distance to the hospital. Approximately halfway there, Naruto awoke and gazed into Anko Midarashi's stunning purplish-tan eyes. "Pretty," was all he said before fainting once more. She looked at the poor Gaki's whisker marks and blushed, saying, "Did he just call me pretty?" She felt a warm sensation in her chest and smiled for the first time in months. She cuddled closer to Naruto and said, "Naruto-kun." "Yes, Naruto-kun." The Anbu could only smile at this scene. It couldn't have gone better for Anko and Naruto, two misfits seeking acceptance. The day he saved her innocence, Anko fell in love with the Gaki, and she was powerless to stop it. She had a strong desire to approach him and express her feelings to the young Gaki. She wondered why Kurenai also liked the child, since she knew that she did. Kurenai said, turning her head, "Why do you like Naruto?" Kurenai turned her head away from her longtime friend, blushing. The two had been friends for years, and Kurenai once had no interest in the boy until she saw the scars all over his body. "Come on Kurenai, you know why I like the Gaki, but I never found out why you liked him." Every time the boy was at home, she started to stalk him. She recalls making the orange jumpsuit he wears so frequently with Anko. Rewind. Naruto had just woken up. He was now 6 years old and it was October 10th, his birthday. If there was one thing Naruto could not stand, it was unquestionably sympathy. He wanted to attend the academy, but he didn't want anyone to see his scars. He went to the living room after washing his toothbrush in boiling water to discover a square package. Kurenai Yuhi and Anko Midarashi were outside Naruto's window. They were aware that the Gaki lacked genjutsu skills, so Anko created a customized jumpsuit using a lightweight, long-lasting fabric. Kurenai, meanwhile, used permanent genjutsu seals. They had constructed the jumpsuit and set it inside a square cardboard box in the center of his living room. Now they watched as he grabbed a long stick from behind his furniture, began prodding the box, and then leapt behind it. "Wow, Anko, you weren't joking when you said this kid was paranoid." Kurenai had never witnessed anyone, much less a 6-year-old, behave so wary of a gift. Before he reached the box, threw off the top, and fled back behind the furniture, they watched him repeat the procedure from various perspectives. He approached the box containing the jumpsuit slowly, took it out, and then proceeded to play with it, much like an inquisitive animal would. A giggle threatened to burst out, but Kurenai had to suppress it. After he finished playing with it, he tried to put it on, but someone knocked on his door. The only place it could go was out the window, so he searched for a hiding spot. He hurried over to the window and tossed it outside. I was hoping that it would notice something. When Kurenai and Anko saw him throw it out the window, they were briefly incensed. However, just before they attempted to beat him, 3 elderly drunks stormed into his home and destroyed everything he owned. They kicked the asses of all the drunks after jumping through the window because they could take no more. After that, they snatched Naruto and fled to the hospital. When they return late that evening to see how Naruto is doing in the hospital, they discover a blood trail that leads back to his apartment. After following it all the way up to Naruto's apartment, they discovered him dozing off on the floor while wearing the identical jumpsuit they had created. Kurenai was shocked. He would risk losing blood for a present. He opened his eyes and she saw him stir. He gave the angel he saw one word to describe it: beautiful. He gazed into her crimson eyes. Kurenai blushed. The boy had just called her attractive, but he wasn't trying to make fun of her or get close to her. Rather, he said it because he truly believed it. Naruto is back. All the signs pointed to Kurenai Yuhi, Konoha's Ice Queen, and Anko Midarashi, the Snake Mistress, having feelings for Naruto, who was beginning to become very confused. Oh boy, he was going to have a great time with Kakashi if his presumptions were correct. He pondered their reaction to his new appearance. He sincerely hoped they wouldn't despise him for having more eyes. Given that he had ever had eyes, Naruto pondered whether his new eye form would be inherited by his offspring. He had no idea that back in Konoha, someone was figuring that out at this very moment. The office of the Hokage II, greatest enemy of humanity, a creature far worse than any experiment made by the treacherous snake Sanin, was currently engaged in combat with the Sandaime. Whatever god he cursed, he did it. Right now, he was going over the report that Team 7 had just sent through Messenger Eagle. Sigh. The Sandaime wondered how the council would react to this. Yes, the council was the biggest enemy of humanity, corrupted idiots. They would demand that she be used as a breeding stock as soon as they learned that a bloodline user was traveling to Konoha. In addition to that, the old war would be requesting that he be given the Kyuubi. At the moment, he was reading the Naruto report again. After finishing, he rubbed his temples and said, "I'm getting too old for this shit." After a few days, Kakashi sent a blood sample to Konoha, and the door to his office suddenly slammed open. Lord Hokage. Sama, I apologize for interrupting you, but we have news on that blood sample Kakashi-san sent us. Kakashi questioned whether Naruto's children would inherit his new condition. And I must say, sir, that it produced interesting results. Sarutobi was becoming nervous. Well, what have you discovered? Minato was the only parent of Naruto with an active dojutsu. Could Kushina have concealed hers too well? How in the hell could Naruto have all 4 dojutsu coursing through his veins? Sir, it would seem that the blood sample contains all 4 of the dojutsu, the difference being is that they are compatible. Apparently the major issue with dojutsu is that since they are dominant genes, one either becomes inactive or they never manifest. This is due to the fact that the human eye can only contain the chakra network for a single dojutsu. But the DNA sample shows that the DNA was altered in that the body managed to gain 2 extra eyes, and then placed a single dojutsu in each eye. And judging from the sample, this would be passed on as a fully dominant trait, all 4 dojutsu, with all the strengths of the originals. We now have the most powerful dojutsu bloodline to be created from experimenting with dojutsu. Sarutobi, the strongest dojutsu bloodline to date, was sitting there with his mouth agape. Amazingly, dojutsu that essentially rendered the Byakugan blind was developed through experiments with the Byakugan in Mist more than 80 years ago. It's incredible how Naruto no could rise to the top of the dojutsu shinobi rankings. Naruto was able to use the Mangekyo Sharingan without losing his sight, but what about the other dojutsu? What were their second forms? But that's not all, sir. It appears that Naruto has all the benefits of the dojutsu's second forms. However, the drawbacks are far less than what their predecessors were. Sarutobi could hardly stay conscious. At this point, he would faint if he heard any more startling facts. The door suddenly flew open, revealing Natara, Lord Hokage's wife of Heishi Hyuga, and Kushina woke up. What did I say? Natara asked, looking at the Sandaime's desk, which was lying on the floor. Naruto is back. He was currently wandering the town to see if he could find a store that made custom clothes, and he was finding it hard to avoid feeling uncomfortable due to all the stares he was getting, stares of admiration, which was unusual because usually people stared at him with hateful eyes. Eventually, he came across a store that made clothes and gear, and when he walked in, he saw all kinds of clothes, from silk to leather to cotton, and he was now looking at a high-density fiber when he was tapped on the shoulder. He turned around and saw a man who was about 30 years old. Naruto calmed down around the man's aura, which he had to ask Kyuubi-chan about. What can I help y'all with, Sonny? We make custom clothes here, so if y'all can just tell me what you want and how much I can set something up for y'all. Naruto took out a sketch pad with a drawing of several outfits and said, yeah, I was wondering if I could get this made. I would like 3 pairs of each, and the materials I would like them made out of are on the page behind it. When you're finished, could you please return the sketch pad? How much will it cost? Naruto had been trying for a long time to get those designs made, but no Konoha store would even let him in the front door. He had the money, but it was difficult to find someone who would assist him. The man bowed low as though Naruto were his master, saying, for the hero of Wave, I'll make him free. You saved our country and helped rid us of that monster Gato. Wave will forever be in your debt. Naruto was shocked to learn that he was the hero of Wave and wondered if that was why all those girls were staring at him. Well shit. Sir, are you certain that you want to do all of this for free? Wave is still recuperating from the Gato's regime. Yes, I lost a lot of friends to that fuck Gato. I am thankful that you took revenge for their deaths on my behalf. The least I can do is give you free clothing. The man rushed to the back to start creating them as soon as Naruto gave him the designs. After that, Naruto started to explore the town until he came upon an abandoned gun store. He concluded that aside from throwing, kunai knives weren't exactly the best weapon for other combat ranges. When he entered, he discovered one of the most incredible weapon collections he had ever seen. If the girl who owns the gun store he frequently purchases from saw this location, he could only speculate what she would do. Beautifully crafted axes that could likely split someone in two were displayed on one shelf. Staffs that could likely break someone's bones were on another shelf. He continued to scan the area until he came to a door. He felt as though something called to him. When he entered, he discovered an entirely different setup. A call to power was echoed by these exquisitely decorated weapons. However, only one weapon drew his attention. A stunning curved sword with a handle that curved forward and a pommel that only covered one side. The blade, however, appeared to be composed of water. Despite this, the blade had a solid shape, and its blue color was covered in strange decorative patterns. Imagine a warrior inside a Persian prince wielding a water sword. It was calling to him, so he reached for it. He was about to pick up the blade when Naruto snatched up the sword and said, "No, don't touch it." Nothing happened, but the sword felt good in his hands. The man was shocked because nobody had ever been able to pick up that sword. Instead, the blade had created a whirlpool that had sliced every other person's arm to pieces. "Sir, what is your name?" The blade was indeed his if this child was who he believed him to be. The man gasped, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki." He had been in this country for years, hoping that an Uzumaki would still be alive. "Why do you ask, sir?" "My family is from Whirlpool, and my name is Toshiro Kusagana. In all the lands, we were the best at making weapons. My clan and yours, our sword making skills, and the Uzumaki's aptitude for using the elements combined to create the weapon you are holding. However, it can only be used by an Uzumaki clan member. Although my clan is able to possess the weapon, our clan is unable to use it. Following the devastation caused by whirlpools, some of my clan's members departed for Konoha, as did the final Uzumaki. We were all very young when we witnessed a monster destroying our entire village. If I may ask, what destroyed your village?" Naruto turned to face the man, curious about what could destroy the village from which his family had come. The man leapt back and sprang at Naruto, saying, "Well, it was WHAAA. TH.TH. That E.I." He was pointing to Naruto's Sharingan, which Naruto was attempting to deactivate, but he was unaware of what Kyuubi had done to grant him the dojutsu in the first place. "What are you so afraid of, my Sharingan? Because the one who destroyed our village, the one who raped the Uzumaki clan head, the one who killed all the Uzumakis leaving only his daughter alive, was Madara Uchiha. And if my assumptions are correct considering you wear a Konoha headband on your arm, your grandfather." Was Naruto truly related to that man? No, Madara Uchiha was a monster who had been given human flesh. Naruto was shocked. Did he truly have a rape-born father? Was this man who made Kyuubi-chan attack his village actually his grandchild? He would make sure that Madara Uchiha was destroyed once and for all if he was, in fact, the monster's grandchild. If I am related to him, can I ask you something? Who was his daughter? His daughter was the most dangerous member of the Uzumaki clan. She was only 9, but she managed to fight Madara Uchiha and remove one of his eyes. I only hope she is still alive. A question of my own. Why do you have 4 eyes? Naruto continued by telling him what had occurred. After finishing the story, the man made the decision to visit Konoha, if only to pay respect to the alliance their clans had. Naruto was searching the town for a ramen stand. He recalls his first experience with it. What a sweet girl Ayame was. It was certainly not unusual for girls to gaze at his whisker marks, and she always did so while he was eating. What was she thinking now, he wondered. Alongside Ayame, who was 3 years older than Naruto, had a slight crush on the blonde Gaki and was falling hard for him. She had just sneezed. I wonder who's talking about me. Maybe it. No, it couldn't be Naruto. About a month after discovering him in an alley, she fell in love. Rewind, it was snowing as Ayame and her father made their way back to their store. While her father dragged the cart containing the ingredients for the ramen, Ayame was only toting a few bags. At the age of 8, Ayame had no friends because she had been working at the ramen stand most of the time since her mother passed away. She heard a trash can topple over as he was passing an alley. She turned to see a boy, perhaps 5 years old, huddled in a mound of snow, dressed only in rags. Her father rushed to her side and said, "Daddy, there's a boy here in the snow, come quick." He left the cart unattended because they had only gone 20 feet before they reached their stand. He had the most horrified expression his daughter had ever seen on his face when he arrived at her location. Follow her father's instructions and run to the stand. Ayame, run to the stand and unlock the doors, I'll carry him inside. Knowing the little boy would be cold, she turned on the heat as soon as she opened the door. A few seconds later, her father entered and set him down on the couch. Ayame didn't know the boy was an orphan or that he had been beaten and abandoned to die in the middle of an alley. "Daddy, why was the little boy in the snow with no clothes on? Won't his mom and dad be upset?" she asked. For a while, Tucci wanted it to remain that way. Grnnn. The young boy was opening his eyes and waking up. Tucci and Ayame approached the boy to check on him. Ah! He blinked twice when he opened his eyes. Then he leapt from the couch and ran beneath the table, trembling like a leaf, mainly from fear. He was only 3 years younger than her and appeared to have been beaten severely, something Ayame had never seen in a boy. Her father led her into another room and told her everything. "Daddy, why does that boy look like he has been beaten? He isn't even old enough to defend himself," he asked. She rushed to the young boy, snatched him from beneath the table, and held him to her chest as soon as her father finished. The little girl grabbed Naruto and squeezed him, making him frightened. "She's trying to choke me to death," Naruto said. "Let me go." No, Ayame was doing her best to be affectionate with the boy. "Let me go." Naruto was crying because he was terrified. "No, I'm not going to hurt you." He resisted for 5 minutes before giving in and allowing her to embrace him. In her arms, he dozed off. Ayame continued to caress his hair and hold him to her. She turned to face Naruto, the young boy her father had named. She wondered how the boy's lips felt as she examined them. She touched her own lips with her finger, then his. His lips appeared chapped, but hers were soft. She was curious about the sensation of kissing him. She woke him up by bringing her lips closer to his and then kissing him. He was blushing profusely and his eyes were wide open when she ended her 5-second kiss. When she grinned at him, he lost it. Thump. "Daddy, Naruto. Kun is not moving," she said as her father entered the room, causing him to burst out laughing. Kai Ayame recalled how Anbu visited their store the following day and gave them instructions to turn over Naruto. Her father declined, stating that Naruto would have to stay with them unless he found an apartment. When some drunks broke into the store a month later while her father was away, she was overjoyed that Naruto had come to her rescue. Rewind. The door to the stand was kicked open while Ayame was doing the dishes. The kitchen was ruined when 2 inebriated individuals stumbled in. The less inebriated of the 2 grabbed her by the throat and pushed her against a wall, saying, "Where is the demon brat? Tell us now, you fucking bitch." The other inebriated man grinned lecherously and said, "Why don't we mock her wan ta el lose?" The other inebriated man consented and was ready to begin harassing her when a knife was thrust into the arm he was using to hold her. "Don't you dare touch her, you fucking faggot," Naruto was furious. He detested child molesters and rapists above all otherwise. When it came to child molesters and rapists, Jiraiya was the only one more dangerous than him. To ensure that the man could never use the knife again, Naruto tore it from his arm. After that, he lunged at the other man and plunged the blade into his ribs, causing him to scream intoxicatedly before collapsing from the agony. With the intention of killing the blonde, the other inebriated person who was holding his arm fled towards him. The man was struck in the head by Ayame's fling of a nearby ladle. The man reversed course and ran in Ayame's direction, but before he could get 5 feet, Naruto struck him in the knee with a bat they had brought in, causing the knee to bend back. The man was rendered unconscious when his head struck the ground with enough force. Using a knife he had brought with him, the other inebriated man seized Naruto and stabbed him through the arm. Then, with a lecherous smile, he started to move toward Ayame. Taking Ayame by the hair, the man threw her to the ground and tore off a portion of her shirt, saying, "I'm going to fuck ya fucking whore." Someone grabbed the man's tongue as he approached and was about to lick Ayame's face. Turning, Ayame saw it was Naruto. The drunk whose tongue he was holding was frightened by what he said next. Naruto lifted his head slightly to allow the drunk to look into his icy, ruthless eyes. "I'll rip your tongue out at the seam," he yelled, digging his fingers deeper into the drunk's mouth before ripping his entire tongue out. "For trying to do dirty one so beautiful and clean." "Ah ha ha," the drunk screamed, blood streaming from his mouth, and Naruto kicked him in the face, knocking him unconscious as he fell headfirst into the oven. He had put his life in danger to save hers, and Ayame gazed at the blonde covered in blood. Other than her father, no one she had ever met would ever do that for her. Ayame Ichiraku, who had only known her for a month, risked his life for her because he was in love with Naruto Uzumaki and was afraid to embrace her. Kai Ayame was desperate to express her feelings to him, but she was afraid he would reject her the instant she did. Since she had never had a boyfriend, she felt extremely self-conscious about being turned down. All she wanted was for Naruto to return from his C rank. Before any of the other girls could reach him, he wanted to get Naruto. Ayame, she said, turning to face her dad. Her father had been able to secure enough support from the various clans and a few civilians to secure a higher seat on the village council ever since the incident in which Naruto saved her life. In 1 week I will need you to come to a council meeting. I know you usually hate them, but I think you will like this one. Her father smiled mischievously at her and asked, "Why, father?" "You'll see." Alongside Kurenai and Anko and Anbu approached Anko and Kurenai as they were about to depart, discussing missions and tidbits of information they knew about Naruto. "The Hokage, Kurenai Yuhi, and Anko Midarashi have asked you to attend a council meeting in a week. He gave me this letter to give you too, even though he knows how much you despise them." He shunned them after giving them the letter. Kurenai and Anko exchanged glances before turning to the letter, which they both opened and started reading. When they were done, they leapt into the air and gave each other a fangirl squeal as the letter fell to the ground, revealing its contents. "Dear Anko and Kurenai, I know you both adore Naruto, but you won't approach him for fear of hurting each other. Fortunately, we have a solution. Naruto has a new bloodline. I hope to see you both at the council meeting this weekend. Regards, Sarutobi PS. When Naruto enters the gates, do not rape him." The room of Hinata. When Hinata fell and cut open her knee, Naruto came and tore off part of his shirt to bandage it, and after he finished, he kissed it better. She was constantly stalking Naruto, even when he was in the showers. At the moment, Hinata was holding her Naruto plush toy, which she had made by stealing a small portion of his hair. Well, she stole about half the hair on his head. Since she first started the academy, Hinata had been utterly devoted to Naruto, and she had fallen in love with him. As Hinata prepared to raid Naruto's home for his used chopsticks, the door to her room opened and her mother and father appeared, both grinning sheepishly. "Hi Hinata, we have some interesting news for you I think you will like." Hinata was aware that her father always went out of his way to ensure that anything he said was positive. "We've arranged for you to marry Naruto Uzumaki. Yayu, I don't have to sneak into his house and feel him up when I'm tired anymore." She blushed a new shade of red before passing out after realizing what she had said and observing her father's horrified expression. Hours later, she woke up to her parents explaining Naruto's current predicament, which shocked and disgusted Hinata before they explained the things that disgusted her. After they were done, they left the room, leaving an ecstatic Hinata to indulge in her sexual fantasies. The Uchiha compound Suzuri Uchiha was tanner than most of her family members, and she had gorgeous long onyx hair and eyes that shined like a black jewel in the moonlight. She was tied with Tenten Kusagana for Kunoichi of the Year, and she ended up with a whole team of Kunoichi who were huge fans of Neji Hyuga, the rookie of the previous year's graduating class. While most of the girls were smitten with the rookie of the year who was older than them, Suzuri fell in love with the Dobi, who was younger than her, the moment she laid eyes on his face and his resolute sky-blue eyes. The genius of the now 12-member Uchiha clan, Suzuri Uchiha was only a year older than her crush, Naruto Uzumaki, and 9 months older than Sasuke. She had witnessed the atrocities committed against Naruto by many of her clan members, and was relieved that her brother Itachi had killed most of the clan, leaving only the 12 or so Uchiha members who attempted to aid Naruto alive. That night, she killed her best friend, who was also her father's cousin, in order to obtain the Mangekyo so that she could kill Naruto to exact revenge for the death of her mother in the Kyuubi attack. Her father interrupted her as she was about to perform a few Kaiden jutsu, thinking that a fire show would impress Naruto. She was 13 years old, beginning to lose her sight, and longs to be with Naruto so much that she tries to learn how to use her Mangekyo better to impress him. However, all of her training will be for nothing once she goes blind in about a year. "Suzuri, I have something to discuss with you that I think you will enjoy." Her father has become much less cold since the Uchiha purge. He still plays practical jokes and wakes us up in strange ways, but she wanted to kill him for waking her up the last time with a flick to the head and then a genjutsu of Naruto declaring his love for her. She jumped out of bed and ran to Naruto to kiss him and drag him to bed, where she would have made love to him for hours, but just as she was about to touch him, he ran out the window and ended up in a pool her father had placed conveniently outside her window. "Yes, father, in 1 week, I would like you to be present at a council meeting. I think you'll enjoy the subject covered there." Her father turned to go, but before he could say, "Catch," he threw her a black object, which she caught before it exploded in her face and released the foulest stench she had ever smelled. "When I get my hands on you, Dad, you're dead." Suzuri then ran after her father, who was giggling uncontrollably. With Hana and Yugo as best friends, Yugo Izuki and Hana Inuzuka, along with their 2 other best friends Kurenai and Anko, had a thing for the local Jinchuriki. Born on the same day, Yugo and Hana spend most of their free time hanging out with Naruto. remembering how they fell in love with the Gaki and thanking God that the boy 6 years their junior did what he did. Rewind after the celebration, Yugo and Hana, who were both 14 when they passed the entrance exam and were on the same genin team as Hayate Gecko, who was just turning into a Jonin, were walking home. However, they were surrounded by roughly 5 Anbu hopefuls who did not graduate just 4 blocks from their condo. You girls have some nerve rising through the ranks like that. Women ought to stay in their proper roles as our bitches. Chunin was the group's sole leader, but they were too inebriated to accomplish much at the moment. Yeah, I think we ought to show you girls what happens to women who leave their place. One of the guys knocked them to the ground while the others pinned them. I'm going to rape you little girls until you beg us for more. The group leader was about to undo his pants when a trash can lid smashed into his face, causing it to bounce off and hit the ones holding Yugo. She kicked them off her before stabbing them in the arms to pin them, and then she kicked off the ones holding Hana. Hana then shoved her new Kodachi into their arms. When they saw the other guy holding up one Naruto Uzumaki, they got up to finish off the other guy. You chose to prevent these young women from being raped, so demon. He was holding a kunai knife to Naruto's throat when he said, well, guess what? Nobody stops me from having fun. Although Hana was shocked to see that Naruto had actually thrown the trash can lid that struck the group leader, she was at a loss for how to assist him at this point. When Yugo saw Naruto toss the trash can lid that knocked down the leader, she was shocked because she had never liked the child and had only ever thought of him as the demon that killed her parents. She was now ashamed of herself for detesting an innocent child. He reached into his pants without either of the two Anbu or his captor noticing, and a moment later he pulled out a kunai knife and thrust it into the man's groin. Yeuch, the man, who was now in excruciating pain, decided to get rid of the two girls who had initially humiliated him. He took an explosive note from his pouch and threw it at the girls after realizing it was the demon brat. They saw him leap in front of a kunai to save them, and he was definitely not a demon. Naruto saw this and ran in front of the two girls, where he was struck by the exploding kunai, but fortunately it was a low grade that the leader threw, so it did not kill him. Hana ran directly to the injured boy's side, and Yugo sliced off the leader's head. Their love for Naruto was initially limited to being overly protective, but as they stalked him and saw a scarred man instead of a boy, they fell in love with the child and were about to go look for the two of them when the same Anbu who had left a letter for Kurenai and Enko spoke with them for a while before leaving a letter with the same responses and writings as Kurenai and Enko. Sandame's workplace at the moment, Sarutobi was filling out forms for clans, citizens, and parents. This was his kind of documentation. Sarutobi was as happy as Jiraiya at a mixed hot spring during a swimsuit contest, and he decided that this was the ideal moment to read his little orange book. Ha ha ha. Let's see the council control me when I make these decisions. After a week, Konoha gates at the moment, Naruto was approaching the village gates, deciding whether to use his sword to slice Zabuza or to punch him. When Zabuza saw his sword, he told him about its great legends, stating that the Mizu Oni was apparently the best water element sword ever created and that it had a number of specialized hijutsu. Naruto's mother brought the scrolls to Konoha, but Zabuza was essentially a fangirl when it came to the sword, and he would not stop talking about it until they were about 20 feet from the main gates. I get it, the sword is awesome. Now shut the fuck up you fanboy before I shove the sword up your ass. How could you defile such a godly weapon by pushing it up my unworthy ass? Zabuza exclaimed. When it came to legendary blades, Haku was rubbing her temples because her father was so annoying. She and Kyuubi were constantly conversing, with the majority of their topics being how to woo Naruto. After the third day of waking up to find Haku and Kyuubi sleeping in his tent, Naruto stopped sleeping naked. Naruto wasn't gay. He simply respected women too much to exploit them in that way. He didn't care how much they wanted him. He was waiting for marriage, and the only way he could get married at 12 was if he had a new bloodline limit. Oh boy is Naruto in the shit, but man, he is one lucky bastard. They were accompanied by Toshiro, who was carrying a special scroll, roughly the size of a summon scroll, that contained his entire shop, and he had created a special seal for it that placed it in a storage scroll. At the moment, Naruto was reviewing the information Kyuubi-chan had given him about his dojutsu. After a week of chakra control exercises, Naruto had figured out how to turn off his Sharingan, and he could use the Hijutsu of the Mangekyo only a certain number of times a day with his chakra reserves. Amaterasu 4 times, Tsukuyomi 6 times, Kamui 3 times, or Susanoo 2 times. After using the techniques, he should have enough left for a few jutsus, but not much. If it were inherited in his family, it would simply be similar to how the Sharingan acquires its tomos. The techniques themselves don't use much chakra, and the Raikon Byakugan is now a stage gained through means similar to how the Sharingan gains tomos. The only difference in form between the Byakugan and the Raikon Byakugan is that the pupil is far more visible. His Raikon Byakugan had been purified by demonic chakra so that the usual personalities would not manifest in future generations, but now he had to worry about a second personality that was basically the opposite of everything Naruto stood for. The second personality also knew everything the real holder of the personality knew, and if the personality gained control, he could regain control. His Akuma Rinnegan was also purified. He will not wither away by not giving in to natural body functions. Kyuubi decided to remove that strength, viewing that a human not giving in to what a body must do is basically a human calling themselves God. Naruto has been training with Haku-chan on Ice Element when she wasn't trying to feel him up. Kyuubi explained to Naruto the various paths. Naruto knew he would have to resort to the Rinnegan's darker powers, but would only use bodies if he found it ethically right. He had already created a new summon. It was a dead lizard when he found it. When he turned it into a summon, he accidentally put the original soul back in it. Luckily, it grew attached to him. He made the lizard his personal summon, until he gets an animal path. He could summon it via a seal on his palm that had the kanji for lizard. The difference between the Rinnegan and the Akuma Rinnegan is that while the regular Rinnegan is a metallic purple in color, the Akuma Rinnegan takes on a tan color with the color around the pupil being a golden brown. But in the golden brown it looked like fire was burning. Check profile. The main difference between the Saishugan and the Kurai Saishugan is that the former has a tinge of gold swirling around with the blue, while the latter has a mass of blue energy constantly shifting around. Naruto's Kurai Saishugan would still remember the faces of all the people he had killed, but it would not haunt his memories constantly. Instead, he would mostly get random nightmares. Naruto had already had his Kurai Saishugan memorize his summon seal in case he needed to recast it, and he had already used it to break down storage and explosive seals. When Naruto bumped into someone while still walking, he looked up into Heishi Hyuga's eyes and began to stammer an apology before Heishi burst out laughing. "Don't worry, Naruto. I won't eat your head off over a minor error." The Hyuga head wanted to speak with Naruto, but he was just as perplexed as the rest of his group. "I actually came here to talk to you in a very important matter." Him, the demon brat. What did Heishi Hyuga want? "Would you mind telling me what you need my student for, Hyuga-sama?" The only things Kakashi knew about the Hyuga were that they had a very strong dojutsu and that they were generally aloof. She had no idea whether or not they had any animosity toward Naruto. "Now, Naruto, you have never known your parents in your life, and I'm sure you frequently wonder if they are still alive or not. You may all stay for this because it will become public knowledge this afternoon." Naruto's company nodded. "Well, I'm glad to report that your mother is still alive." Naruto turned to face the ground. Heishi realized right away how he took it and felt embarrassed about it. I guess she didn't want to be associated with the demon brat. "No, Naruto, you are very loved by your mother. She has finally woken up after being in a coma for the past 12 years. Heishi told Naruto, "I can honestly say she would love nothing more than to be with her son." Heishi had heard about what had happened to Naruto from Kyuubi, who he assumed was the red-haired girl staring at him at the moment. "It seems Naruto has a fan club," Heishi said, but it was going to take some time to get used to Naruto having 4 eyes. After not seeing his mother for the past 12 years, Naruto asked, "Where is my mom?" Heishi merely turned Naruto toward one of the gates by grabbing his shoulder. A red-haired woman with emerald green eyes stood next to the gate. She wore a long black dress and a big green jacket that covered her C-cup bust while enhancing it. Her crimson red hair framed her adorable face. As the person Heishi recognized as his mother approached Naruto, all he could do was stare. His mother was here, still alive, and still loved him. Easily a foot taller than Naruto, his mother halted directly in front of him. Not even a second later, she leapt forward and put her arms around him, crying into his orange jumpsuit as she knelt down to his level and looked straight into his eyes. As her son embraced her and shushed her, Kushina interrupted, saying, "I'm so sorry, Naruto. I'm sorry I couldn't raise you, my child. I'm sorry you had to live as an orphan. I'm sorry you have been beaten since." Kushina simply kept crying in her son's chest. Even Naruto had not cried. Sakura and Sasuke were perplexed. After not having a mother in his life, Naruto had recently been reunited with her, but he had not even shed a tear. Kakashi, not that I like seeing Naruto crying, but why isn't Naruto crying? Kakashi glanced at them. Have any of you seen Naruto cry before? And they all shook their heads. No, Naruto has not cried since he was 3 years old. He knew that crying would only encourage the villagers, it would not help him. Naruto stopped crying after a beating that went on for hours before we found him. I was the one to walk up to his still form. There were old tear stains, but those were probably hours old. That was the last time I saw anything on Naruto reminiscent of tears. The last time he cried was 3 hours before he turned 3. He hasn't cried in so long, he's forgotten how to. Sasuke and Sakura were appalled, to forget how to weep. Both Kyuubi's and Haku's eyes were wet. Zabuza was furiously clenching his fist at the villagers, claiming that not even mistreated kids that badly. Toshiro knew that it would anger Naruto, but he was prepared to do to the leaf what Madara had done to Whirlpool. Kushina had just stopped crying and was simply holding her child while he soothed her by rubbing her back. Kushina sobbed for 5 minutes before letting go of her son and inhaling deeply. After giving his mother a sly smile, Naruto said, "I suppose you'll want some information on what I have done with my life." Naruto was aware that his mother would be interested in his whereabouts because she had been in a coma for a long time. She sighed and then expressed her annoyance in a very Naruto-esque way. "I would love to hear about how your life has been," she said. "But the council wishes to speak with you in regarding recent events." Naruto got up and took his mother's hand, pulling her all the way to the Hokage Tower. Sigh, somehow I knew the council would want to talk to me about having 4 eyes, gives them a reason to try and kill the demon brat. But I guess it's inevitable, so what are we waiting for, let's go. Heishi laughed, finding it unfunny how much Naruto resembled his mother. He recalls that Kushina practically dragged their entire graduating class down to Ichiraku Ramen because she was so thrilled about Minato being named Yondaime. He turned to face the other members of the group after noticing that they were nearly out of sight. Grin. Heishi laughed at their dejected expressions at being forced to attend a council meeting. Lord Hokage would also like those present to be present at the council meeting. Team 7 and the newcomers followed Heishi as he started the journey to the Hokage Tower. Things are going to get interesting, chambers of the council. Naruto Uzumaki was the subject of the council's current discussion. The matter of said blonde had 3 sides. One faction, led by the 2 elders and the majority of the civilian council, wanted Naruto killed in order to stop the beast from taking control. The majority of the civilian council was composed of conceited idiots who believed they could manage shinobi affairs. They were the ones who planned Naruto's assassination when he was 3 years old and passed a law that said anyone who attempted to adopt him would be put to death. Since they lacked the necessary funds to carry out the child's execution, they chose to simply ruin his life. Naruto was seen as a danger to their power by them. Danzo's other side wanted to turn Naruto into a weapon. Danzo practically leapt out of his council seat and demanded that Naruto be assigned to his root division as soon as it was revealed that he was a Jinchuriki. The Hokage, all the clan leaders, and some members of the civilian council shot him down right away. After that, he made innumerable attempts to obtain the Gaki as a weapon of his own. He became even more determined after learning of Naruto's new bloodlines. Those in charge of the last group wanted Naruto to develop as he saw fit. The clan leaders and some members of the civilian council were in charge of this sect. The Ichirakus, Kusaganas, and roughly 3 other civilians were able to assist in keeping Naruto safe. When it came to helping Naruto escape the hell that the civilians were making him live in, the clan council was all for it. The civilian council shot down the majority of the clan council after they attempted to assist the blonde demon container in one way or another. They couldn't do much because Naruto wasn't a shinobi at the time. While the council was still debating, the doors to the council chamber slammed open, revealing a few civilians, Naruto Uzumaki, and a red-haired woman who appeared to unnerve the clan council. The last person you wanted to sneer at was the Red Death Kushina Uzumaki, who was standing next to Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was panting, so nobody noticed his abrupt change. "Sorry, old man. We just got back a few minutes ago." "Learn some respect, Demon BR, Crash," started the fat counselor, but Kushina interrupted with a forceful kick that sent the fat ass straight into the wall. As she let go of Ki, Kushina lifted her head just enough to reveal her icy green eyes. "If anyone, and I mean anyone, insults my son again," she said. The civilian council was now utterly terrified. "I'll kill you." Kushina Uzumaki didn't take offense easily. Their fears were allayed when Tenten Kusagana began to speak. "Oh my god, you," pointing to Naruto, "are the son of the Red Death." Tenten ran up to Naruto and began shaking his still, exhausted form while screaming, "Please, please, 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 can you get me an audience with your mother? Please, I'll do a NY thing." Tenten stopped shaking Naruto when she noticed that he had 4 eyes, each with a different form. The top left eye was a light purple color with black rings around the pupil, the top right eye was onyx, and the eye below it was Naruto's normal color, albeit slightly lighter. When Tenten saw Naruto's eyes, he began to splutter. She forgot what she was asking him because of it. Tensai Kusagana, her father, stood up and walked her back to her chair. The door opened just as the talks were about to start, revealing Heishi Hyuga, Team 7, and 4 newcomers. One was a man with brown hair and a scar down the side of his face. He was carrying a large storage scroll, just like Jiraiya the Sannin, and was dressed in a blacksmith suit. The other was a big, muscular man with a huge guillotine on his back and bandages covering most of his face. The next was a red-haired woman with a tight black dress with long slits on the side. She wore a tight-fitting shirt with long sleeves that extended about 6 inches past her hands, and her hair was styled similarly to that of the Hyuga genius Neji, with the exception that her bangs were loose. The final individual was a young, ebony-haired girl in a long dress, but her hair was in a bun, her vest was open just below her armpits, and her shirt was incredibly tight, exposing her belly button. Heishi had met some odd people, but Zabuza's wife stands out because she resembles an older Haku. Sorry we were late, Zabuza needed to check on something. Apparently his wife is in Konoha and he needed to check the apartment complex she was in. But the idea of her acting like Hinata while Naruto high frightened him. Hinata is a shy person, but when it comes to Naruto, don't belittle her. For 3 weeks, the last person who made that error was urinating blood and was unable to walk for a month. Zabu-kun, I need to make sure she is okay, she said she'd be here in. The counselors watched as a black woman with a small bump on her belly, dressed in a large dress, entered through the door. You could go to the hospital and find out the gender in 10 minutes. Everyone stared at Zabuza in confusion. Zabu-kun, only 3 more weeks until we get the tests back. Then we'll find out if it's a boy or girl. My wife's family has old traditions that she likes to follow. It's a little odd, but I still love her. Got a problem with that? Everyone was shivering. As we were saying, we are here to discuss the topic of Naruto Uzumaki. Together with a few others who were also brought by the council, Naruto, Team 7, and the newcomers, I'll refer to them as such until I separate them, left the room. Hinata Hyuga, Suzuri Uchiha, Kurenai Yuhi, Enko Mitarashi, Hana Inuzuka, Yuga Ozuki, and Tenten Kusagana were among those who had been brought by council members. At the moment, Naruto felt extremely uneasy. Kyuubi, Haku, Hinata, Anko, Kurenai, and Yugo were all giving him lustful looks, and Hana Suzuri was clearly having trouble seeing him. Kyuubi also appeared to notice. Kyuubi approached her and pulled her aside. Before putting her hand on Suzuri's forehead, she performed a few hand seals. After Suzuri dozed off, Kyuubi approached Naruto. Kyuubi glanced at the scowling girls, who instantly appeared to turn away when Kyuubi said, Naruto-kun, I kind of need to speak to you in private. Although Naruto was aware that Kyuubi liked him, she was being absolutely serious at the moment when she said, it's extremely important to me. Kyuubi guided Naruto to a closet after he nodded his head. She performed a few hand seals that Naruto recognized as genjutsu seals before opening the closet. Then she used her pointer to touch the door, opened it, and pulled Naruto inside. Before the abrupt surge of air ceased, Naruto closed his eyes. The moon itself was a lovely shade of light yellow glow that shone through the clouds just passing above its bottom section. Naruto opened his eyes expecting to see the interior of the closet, but instead he saw a gorgeous forest with a dark blue sky that indicated it was after dark. Gorgeous lilies and roses of every hue covered the ground. He saw a large waterfall cascading into a glistening blue lake as he turned around. The lake was brimming with fish, and frog pads and water lilies encircled the lake's edge. The spiral rock, which resembled a staircase and had a snake-like arrangement of rocks leading up to it, was the most exquisite feature, though. Naruto was dragged across the rocks and guided to the spiral before he could observe anything more. When they reached the top of the spiral, they took some time to take in the view. Naruto was really perplexed. He had never seen a place this lovely before. Kyuubi-chan, where are we and why are we here? It reverberated with an inherent beauty that is impossible for the human hand to attain. Kyuubi gave him the most tender and affectionate look he had ever seen as he met his eyes. Naruto-kun, I was taken from here 12 years ago. This is the Kitsune realm. I brought you here to give you my love. Naruto was now startled and perplexed. How could you possibly show him love by bringing him here? When I awoke from being sealed inside of you, I saw your life. I saw all of your torment. I saw how many times you were beaten. I saw how at the moment you turned 3 you forced yourself to never cry again. I saw who you were, and I fell in love with you. I have lived for over 107 years. I was never able to fall for any of my kind. But due to me being the heir to the Kitsune family, I must choose a husband, I must choose a mate. Kyuubi exhaled and continued. Naruto, Kyuubi is only my title, my name that was given to me by my mother and father, a name to a kitsune is extremely valuable. We keep our names a secret to all. We are identified by our accomplishments or titles, until we tell one person our name. The one whom we tell our name to will become our mate. They will become the only person that we may make love to, the only one whose children we can bear. Naruto Uzumaki, I ask you, as I give you my name, will you have me? Naruto was taken aback when the Kyuubi asked him marry her. Unsure of what to do, Naruto opened his mouth, only to have Kyuubi put a finger to it. Naruto nodded his head in agreement, thanking Kami for sparing him from having to make a decision at that moment. Naruto.kun. I will tell you my name, but the choice to become my mate is yours. You will have 3 days to decide on what you wish to do. If you say yes, I am yours. If you say no, you may never speak my name to anyone. As they were dragged out of the Kitsune realm, Naruto blacked out. Naruto.kun. She pressed her body against his. My name, she whispered, bringing her head close to his ear, is Kaisei. Alongside Naruto, it had only been a minute since Naruto and Kaisei had returned to the room. They and their group walked back. When Naruto noticed Suzuri waking up, he approached her to find out what was happening. Point of view of Suzuri. Suzuri had just woken up from the jutsu that the red-haired girl had applied to her. She acknowledged that she had trouble seeing, but she promised to fix it. Suzuri risked her sai in an attempt to win Naruto.kun over because she was so desperate to do so. When she opened her eyes, she expected to see things more blurry, but instead she saw them as clearly as before she had the Mangekyo. Naruto was approaching her when she looked up. Overall point of view. As the years passed, Naruto saw less and less of Suzuri, so he was walking in her direction to find out how she was doing. He wanted to know what was going on with her. Upon noticing that Naruto had a Sharingan user's black onyx eye in the eye above his normal right eye, Suzuri said, "Hey Suzuri, how are you doing?" She now believes what she said to her father earlier. Suzuri wanted to ravish him until he was exhausted from making love so much, but she was able to control her desire because of her older brother Itachi's training. "Hey Naruto.kun, can I talk to you about your Sharingan?" she asked. Her desire for Naruto remained unabated despite it. The two sat down and discussed a variety of Sharingan secrets. Naruto was amazed that she possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. "Sure, I have some questions of my own." The question that was bothering him was then posed by Naruto. "How are we related?" Suzuri anticipated hearing this question. Fortunately, her father informed her of his mother's ancestry. He didn't want to share his father's background with her just yet. To her relief, she did not believe she could continue to live if she could not be with Naruto because their blood relationship was too close. Naruto.kun, the relationship between us is extremely distant. Our relation is about 1/200th of our gene pool. We are so distantly related we can't even be considered cousins. But my father knew about your mother's heritage. He decided to tell me knowing that I would be able to tell you, although I would have to explain a little history to you. Naruto raised his eyebrows. Okay, we will have to start off with the Uchiha clan over 100 years ago. The Uchiha clan was enemies with the Senju clan of the forest. We were rivals in all things. Back then, it was the strongest of the clan who led it. During that time we had a few separate branches of the clan. But these branches were more so separate relatives that had a farther relation to each other but still carried the name Uchiha. The total number of Uchihas numbered close to about 500 clan members. Each branch believed in different ideals. The branches were numbered through strength. There were 7 branches in total. Each branch specialized in something. The 7th branch specialized in armed combat. In terms of close combat, they had no equals within the clan. The 6th branch specialized in long-range support. They could fire an arrow from over a mile away and still hit the target they intend to hit. The 5th branch specialized in medicine and poisons. They had books in regards to various herbs and medical techniques, but they could create the perfect poison as well. The 4th branch specialized in infiltration. If they did not want you to see them, you would not see them. The 3rd branch specialized with mid-range support. They were greatly specialized in the use of fire jutsu and pyrotechnics. The 2nd branch specialized in combat by use of other forms of ninjutsu, taijutsu, or genjutsu. They never used techniques that they learned themselves. They only used techniques that they had copied from others. The final branch was the 1st branch. They were the only branch to implement parts of all the other branches into their combat. The 7th through 2nd branches were essentially separate clans of Uchiha, and the 1st branch was the binding agreement of them. But the 1st branch was extremely possessive of the Sharingan. They believed that breeding within the clan would produce perfect offspring. The leaders of the 1st branch copulated. The two of them were never apart, and they had known each other since the beginning of their lives. They were born from the same mother and father and were taught that to bear children of one who was outside the clan was the greatest dishonor they could ever achieve. The two of them were not just brother and sister, they were twins. They had copulated, saying that their pureblood offspring would become the strongest of all Uchihas. Their first birthing bore two sons. The first of the twins was named Madara Uchiha. Naruto clenched his fist at the name. The second twin was Izuna Uchiha. The two of them were named as the beginning of a future Uchiha clan. 9 months after the birth of their sons, a member of the 7th branch offered their child, a girl by the name of Ijo Uchiha, to be the bride of one of the two twins. She was raised by the first branch, but held the ideals of the other branches that opposed inbreeding. Overuse of Madara Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan had been causing him to go blind. He did the unimaginable when he eventually lost his sight. He killed his brother and stole his eyes. Gaining the Mangekyo will grant the user immortality, making him the first Uchiha immortal. Madara persisted in his conflict with the Senju. Hashirama Senju, the Senju clan's leader, arrived in Madara pleading for peace after a 20-year absence. He only consented because peace was what the other branches desired. Years later, he was starting to think that Ijo should finally carry out the responsibility that their parents had instilled in them. However, he was unaware that after his first wife passed away during childbirth, his clansmen had developed feelings for the Senju leader. Madara discovered that she was only a week along in her pregnancy with his child. Madara was appalled that she wanted to have a child with someone who wasn't from her clan, and even more so that she wanted to have a child with his bitterest enemy. In addition to punishing her, his goal was to ensure that the creature in her womb would never be born. Madara Uchiha raped and killed his clansmen after slashing out Ijo's eyes, breaking her arms and legs, and binding her. When Hashirama discovered the body of his lover, mutilated and violated by her own clansmen, he swore revenge. He chased Madara to what is now the Valley of the End and fought against Madara and a giant black nine-tailed fox. Naruto was startled to learn that there was another Kyuubi. Naruto was shocked to learn that a child with the potential for both the Sharingan and Mokuton had survived. Madara was thought to have been defeated by the Senju leader, leaving no trace left of the black Kyuubi. It was believed that Madara had killed Hashirama's only child with Ijo, but he only killed the second child. The first child of Ijo and Hashirama was not known until recently, after the child had fathered a new generation of Uchiha, and soon, a new generation of Senju. Suzuri's side, Naruto, the only child of Ijo Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, was Yudohi Uchiha. He married a young woman named Sabomi Haruno. Their only child was Fugaku Uchiha, my father. If Naruto's eyes could get any wider, let them get wider. By now the Mokuton Jutsu that was passed down in its dormant form needed only one more generation to manifest fully into a Kekkei Genkei. The Mokuton Jutsu, however, was only a 1 out of 3 chance of manifesting in one of my father's children. Since the male determines which gender the child will have, it would either be the male or female to pass on the trait. If a male receives it, only his male children would have a chance to possess it. If a female possess it, then it could go either way since females can only give the female gene. Suzuri sighed for what seemed to be the 10th time already. Using her chakra to make a seed grow, she demonstrated, Naruto, I am the last known possessor of the Mokuton bloodline. Naruto was struggling to stay conscious now. He was about to ask more questions when the door to the council room opened and he saw a trembling Sandame. Why? ua.all m.mac.com.me and n.now. Ignoring the Sandame's trembling, everyone got up and entered the council chambers, only to discover that the floors were covered in the bodies of a large group of Root Anbu, the 3 elders, and the majority of the civilian council. They were mortified and looked around to see Kushina Uzumaki standing over the bodies with her black katana, which appeared to be feeding off of the dead energy in the air, based on Naruto's observations. When they turned to look around again, they saw the clan heads shivering together like a bunch of leaves in the wind, along with the Haruno, Kusagana, Ichiraku, and the other 2 members of the civilian council who backed Naruto. Sorry, they kind of pissed me off. Council is now in session, Kushina said, grinning as she turned to face her son, who was staring at her with all 4 of his eyes. Kushina then leapt off the table and used a fire jutsu to burn all of the bodies and a wind jutsu to remove the ash and the smell of burnt flesh. Naruto did a flawless impression of Hinata because he couldn't handle any more shock that day. Thump. Hanabi Hyuga entered the room at that precise moment. She began jabbing Naruto in the forehead as soon as she saw him. After turning her head toward each of the 3 groups in the room, she turned to face Naruto and said, I think you broke him. The whole room went into a frenzy of laughter as Heishi slapped himself across the forehead and said, just like her mother used to be. This left Naruto unconscious and Hanabi in a state of confusion. Naruto had just awoken from a coma brought on by shock. Naruto's last memory is of entering the council chambers and seeing his mother standing over a number of corpses. In the adjacent room, he had just concluded a discussion with Suzuri-chan. He had previously discovered that the Kyuubi's name was Kaisei. Additionally, he discovered that the Kyuubi who was telling him her name was effectively proposing marriage. Naruto's mind was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of these startling discoveries. When he woke up, he saw a pair of pale eyes that were almost identical to Hinata-chan's staring into his eyes. He had fainted in front of the remnants of the council. He simply gazed into the unidentified person's pale eyes until he made the decision to talk. Hi. He now saw that the eyes belonged to a young girl who was about the same age as the grandson of the Hokage. She made a very adorable, kawaii gesture with her head tilt. She blushed slightly at Naruto's smile before turning to face Hishi. The little girl began to pet Naruto's tangle of hair and grinned sweetly before her father lifted her off Naruto's chest, which made her pout. "Daddy, can we keep him? He's cute." Before turning to face the council room again, Naruto stood up and brushed himself off. With their guests standing directly behind them, all of the counselors who had not been slain by his excessively violent mother were now seated. Zabuza was sitting down at the table now. He saw the council room had a number of empty spots. He pondered whether or not they would fill them. The Sandaime said, "Now that the council is in session, we have come to discuss the matter that is Naruto Uzumaki." Astonished, Naruto turned to face him. Even though he had only met the Kyuubi a few hours prior, the elderly Hokage was aware that he was not the demon. What on earth was happening, then? The rest of the council nodded, but the girls in the room were, for some reason, wide-eyed as Tuchi Ichiraku got up to speak. Due to Naruto's status in being the last of his clan, he now falls under the CRA, Clan Restoration Act. It is also made more apparent now that he has a new bloodline, a powerful one at that. Naruto began to ask questions because he was so perplexed. The counselors merely laughed at Naruto's ignorance, and the girls in the room gave him a mischievous gleam in their eyes. "Hey old man, what do you mean new bloodline? I don't know if my new abilities can be considered new or not. And what is the CRA, and how exactly do I file under it? Hell, I didn't even know I was a part of a clan." "I think you will want to sit down for this one, it will definitely be a shock to you," Naruto said, turning to face his mother, who was scratching the back of her head as he usually did. Naruto chose to heed his mother's advice and sat down until she stopped him. Naruto turned to face her and said, "Naruto, your seat is over there." His seat was directly between Fugaku and Hishi. He went to the seat and took a seat after deciding to listen to his mother. He saw that Hishi and Fugaku were making plans. And he felt awful about the whole situation. Boy. He glanced around, noticing the playful sparkles in many of the council members' eyes. Still scanning his surroundings, Naruto was perplexed when Sandaime said, "Naruto, we're here to discuss your new condition, Kyuubi's freedom, as well as a few contracts that have been put in place by many of the council, as well. What on earth was happening?" Old man, I am a little confused in regards to what you were talking about. What condition are you talking about, and what do you mean contracts?" "Naruto, you may not have realized it, but your special condition in that you now have 4 eyes instead of 2 will be inherited by your future generations. Your children will also possess your unique abilities that your dojutsus possess." At Naruto's perplexed response, the Sandaime merely laughed. "Okay, so what does all that mean, old man?" Naruto was still the dense blonde fool despite receiving some upgraded dojutsu. Sigh. He realized that this would take longer than he had anticipated, and Zabuza chose to simplify it just as Sandaime was about to speak. "Look Gaki, what the old man here is saying is that our 4-eyed condition along with your new eyes will be passed on to your children. They will be passed on through your children as well, essentially making a new Kekkei Genkei." Naruto appeared to appreciate the reduced version more. Zabuza merely hoped that his daughter would be able to make the Gaki a little more intelligent. Naruto was quite perplexed and said, "Oh, okay, but what do you mean by contracts? As far as I know, I do not owe anybody anything. Which contracts were they discussing?" He started to ask more questions, but his mother grabbed him by the shoulder. "Naruto, sweetie, they're talking about marriage contracts." What do you mean marriage contracts?" was Naruto's cry as he began to hyperventilate once more. After learning that his mother is still alive and that Q Kaisei-chan is proposing to him, he is suddenly confronted with 4 dojutsu that were marginally more potent than the originals just a week ago. He was slapped on the cheek to keep him upright before he passed out. The smirks of Hana, Yugo, Kurenai, and Anko were directed at Naruto as he looked around. "Naruto, what we mean is that several of us have set up marriage contracts between you and our daughters." There are also several Jonin that have come here to ask for your hand in marriage as well. Fugaku, Haishi, Tuchi, and Sume were the counselors who had suggested contracts with their daughters. Sume formally made a contract for Hana, and Sarutobi made a contract for each Jonin who expressed interest in marrying Naruto. Since Sabuza was now appointed a counselor because of his wife's lineage, the next bomb was dropped when he signed a contract. Not even 30 minutes had passed since Kaisei Chan had asked for Naruto's hand in marriage, and he was shaking, bewildered, and afraid. Given that many of the villagers didn't like Naruto, Sandaime was overjoyed when he said, "Well Naruto, all we need now is your signature on these contracts and then we are officially done." He hoped that Naruto would leap up and shout, "Hallelujah!" for his current good fortune. He was surprised by Naruto's response. When Naruto got to his feet, the majority of the council assumed he would sign the contracts right away. They were surprised when he looked up and started to move in the direction of the council doors. "I am not rejecting the offers, nor am I accepting them, I just need time to think." Naruto turned around before leaving the council chambers, leaving a number of stunned clan heads in his wake. The majority of boys in his situation would readily accept the proposal. Before speaking, Kushina glanced at the counselors and said, "I will check on him and see what's up." As the council started deliberating, she hurried out of the room to follow her upset child. Tenten interrupted them before they could finish 2 sentences. Tenten understood that marrying Naruto would enable her to potentially train under Kushina Uzumaki, so she asked, Daddy, why didn't you put in a contract for me to marry Naruto?" She pondered whether her father was simply tardy in submitting the contract. Her father had not listed her because he knew she did not truly love Naruto. "Tenten, I did not put in your name to be possibly married to Naruto, because I see no reason as to why you would want to be married to him." Tenten's eyes widened as he said, the thing that all of those who were placed on the contract had in common, was that they already loved Naruto. 8 of the girls adored Naruto, but they were desperate to train under Kushina. Her father silenced her by raising his hand and saying, "But Daddy, I think that over time I could come to love him, surely you could." The Kusagana head turned to face the 8 girls in the room who had been placed in the contract. "Tenten, I know the reason you want to marry Naruto is to be trained by Kushina Uzumaki, but I do not see that as a valid reason as to why you should marry Naruto. If you need any more proof as to why you should not marry Naruto, just look at the reasons those who signed the contract love Naruto." They exchanged glances before Hinata moved forward. "Oh, Hinata, could you please explain your love for Naruto to us?" With a shy nod, Hinata said, "I adore Naruto. K.Kun because he has a strong will and never gives up. On our first day at the academy, I got to meet Naruto.To.Kun for the first time. Even though the teachers were extremely cruel to him, he persisted. My affection for Naruto only deepened when he went above and beyond to assist me. For example, he used a portion of his own shirt to bandage an scrape I had when I was hurt, and after he was done, he kissed it better." Tenten flinched visibly as Hinata glared at him. "I'll love Naruto.Kun, and your reasons for wanting to marry him are shallow." Suzuri chose to take the initiative. "Tenten, the reason I adore Naruto is that he endured suffering and took all of the beatings from my own clan. I adore him because, among all the villagers in Konoha, he is the only one who is resilient enough to survive this village and maintain a cheerful expression. I witnessed him take beatings from Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and even some Anbu. Before being expelled from the orphanage, he lost his innocence, not that kind of innocence." Tenten looked down as Ayame approached. "My father tried so many times to adopt him, but every attempt was blocked by the civilian council. Because of what Naruto.Kun did and had to go through, I adore him. I discovered him wearing only rags and partially buried in the snow. I asked my father about it after noticing that he had recently been beaten. I rushed into the room where we had left him and gave him a big hug after he had finished explaining everything to me. When I hugged him, he was frightened. Until the Sandaime could find him an apartment, we allowed him to remain in our home. After a month, 2 inebriated individuals broke into our home and tried to rape me. To stop them, Naruto.Kun put his life in danger. Anko came forward next. That was the night I fell in love with him. The Sandaime had just declared me not guilty of Orochimaru's crimes. 3 members of the civilian council had attacked me and threatened to rape me. They were going to tear my clothes off when Naruto suddenly appeared and beat the living daylights out of the inebriated group member. When the other 2 attempted to attack him from behind, I killed them by throwing a trash can at them, which caused them to smash into the wall. Naruto was flung across the alley with a kunai in his chest just as I was ready to assist him. When Naruto cut his legs, the counselor he was fighting attempted to rape me and was knocked to the ground. Naruto killed the man after he was brought to his knees. After he passed out from lack of blood, a genin attempted to capture Naruto, believing him to be a demon. Kurenai came forward after Tenten, who was shocked, said, "I cut that Chunin across the face until Anbu arrived and took us to the hospital. When we made Naruto-kun his first outfit that wasn't made of rags, I fell in love with him. He was extremely wary of the box in which we had his gift. He played with it in such a cute way when he eventually opened it. However, some inebriated individuals stormed into the room. Despite his serious injuries, he threw it out a window and went back for the jumpsuit. He was very appreciative and committed. I observed him for some time without realizing that my feelings for him had developed into love." Yugo and Hana then took the stage. "I used to despise Naruto, and I only saw him as the demon that killed my family," Yugo said. "However, my opinion changed after he prevented a group of failed Anbu from raping Hana and me. Before thrusting a kunai into the leader's area, he had knocked down a few with a trash can lid." The men in the room visibly flinched until Hana went on with the tale. "The leader had been stabbed in the groin by him. He started to leave, but when he saw that an explosive tag was approaching, he bravely leapt to block it. Tenten flinched once more, unaware that Naruto had put his life in danger. Haku was the next to speak. He hurt himself to save our lives, when we always ignored his. I might have just met Naruto, Tenten, however, of all the people I have ever encountered in my life. The purest of hearts belongs to Naruto. Kyuubi and I, note that everyone in the council had to be informed about Kyuubi, have essentially thrown ourselves at him for the past week. He has consistently refused, and has always the same response. I hold too much respect for women to do that outside of wedlock, has demonstrated to me how pure his heart was." Tenten stared at her bewilderedly. Naruto-kun has a diagonal scar across his chest, the Kyuubi's fox form carved onto his back, and he's even had his arm chopped off multiple times. His scars only made me love him more. Tenten looked down until her father spoke. "I have come to love him for his pure heart and his resolve. Tell me, Tenten, why you love him, and why you want to wed Naruto." Tenten pondered for a moment, knowing that she didn't love him and that her only desire in marrying him was to be trained by Kushina Uzumaki. Her father placed a lot of emphasis on the love aspect. Man, did she feel shallow. Tenten sat back down, content that she had made the right decision, and the council looked. "We just need Naruto to sign the contracts now that that part is finished. Additionally, we must talk about Kyuubi." Sarutobi looked around to find that the Kyuubi was not in the room. Well shit. Alongside Naruto, after learning that his mother was still alive after being in a coma for 12 years, Naruto was at a loss for what to do. He would have accepted Kaisei's hand in marriage that evening, but the council and a number of jonin had established multiple marriage contracts, and he had no idea how kitsunes viewed partnerships, so he was sitting on the fort's head, wondering the same thing. What should I do? He was about to get up to continue his walk when he sensed. Since when is he able to sense anything outside of his natural danger sense? He sat there for a while thinking about everything that had happened so far. A new bloodline, his mother is alive. Kaisei and 8 other girls offer their hand in marriage. He turned around to see his mother's worried face. "What's wrong, Naruto? My love, any other guy would have been running around town like a maniac. So why did Naruto seem conflicted?" Kushina was worried about her child, and she saw him walk right out of the council room when the contracts with several girls who loved him were made public. They sat for a few minutes until Naruto broke the silence by saying, "I don't know what to do." Kushina looked at her only child, wondering what he meant, and Naruto tilted his head to tell her to sit down. Before the council meeting, when we were sent to the other room, Kushina said. The Kyuubi no Kitsune had asked for her son's hand in marriage, leaving Kushina in disbelief. Kyuubi. Shan opened a portal to the Kitsune realm and took me there to ask if I would marry her. Why is that a bad thing, Naruto? If she asked to marry you, it must mean she. Kushina was interrupted by Naruto's next words. Kushina calmed down and said, "That's not it, the biggest reason was from that council meeting. 8 marriage contracts were set up immediately after Kyuubi asked me to marry her. And I'm loved by all the girls who arranged the contracts. I'm at a loss for what to do. I don't know if kitsunes will accept me being married to a human or if they permit harems." Kushina now realized what Naruto meant. He cared for each and every one of the girls, perhaps not to the degree of love, but enough to not want to hurt them. Plus, if a harem is not allowed, then I am basically hurting all of those girls who have their hearts set on me. It's like I can't win. Kushina sighed, unsure of what to do. Kushina was too protective of her son and Naruto was too to realize that someone had been observing them the entire time. Alongside Kaisei was crying because, even though she was no longer sealed inside Naruto, she was still linked to him and could read his thoughts. She was both pleased that Naruto was considering her more than himself and disappointed that the internal conflict was hurting him so much. She walked out of the bush she was hiding behind and approached the conflicted blonde, having come to the firm conclusion that no human, kitsune, or other being in the entire world could ever compare to Naruto. Returning with Naruto, he sat with his mother beside him, still perplexed by Kaisei-chan, the marriage contracts, and his new bloodline, until he felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to look into Kaisei's stunning amber eyes. He tried to speak, but Kaisei spoke first, saying, "Naruto-kun, I gave you the choice of whether you would accept my hand in marriage. I knew the council would pull something like this. Your reaction would have told me if I had made the right choice in a mate. Naruto-kun. There is not a man or demon who I could ever love as much as I love you." Kaisei pressed her lips to Naruto's again, and Kushina sat to the side, laughing but cautious. Kaisei continued kissing Naruto until he pushed her away. "Kaisei-chan, but what abo mph," he said, but Kaisei's argument was cut short when she locked lips with him once more. Her moaning into his mouth was a blatant indication that she was much more passionate, and they parted ways again, leaving a trail of saliva between their mouths. A kitsune can set terms that they deem necessary after they have selected their mate, according to Naruto's kitsune law. This can be contested, but I am confident that we will render their objections to our terms moot. Kaisei left Naruto and started to return to the council chambers before turning back to face Naruto and asking, "What is your response?" She started to leave, leaving a bewildered Naruto and a laughing Kushina as Naruto was about to respond, "Good." He didn't know what had happened, so Naruto kept thinking, "How did she know what I was going to say?" Until his mother burst out laughing, and he stared at her for a while before laughing too. After a few minutes of laughter, they got up and headed back to the council chamber, knowing that things in Konoha were about to get more interesting. Returning to the council chambers, in addition to Kushina Uzumaki slaughtering nearly the entire council, the Kyuubi no Kitsune was nowhere to be seen, and they were about to flee the office and begin screaming for their lives when the doors opened to reveal the Kyuubi. She approached the Sandame and whispered something in his ear, but no one could hear her, not even the Inuzukas, but they knew that whatever she said made the Sandame happy, if the smirk was any indication. Kyuubi stepped back and put on a grin before Sarutobi spoke. The counselors turned to the elderly Hokage and said, "He will only marry up to a point of 10 wives, which means he only has one spot open now." The counselors were perplexed, and the Haruno head was the one who asked the question that everyone had. It would appear that Naruto has made his decision in regards to the CRA. He has agreed to accepting the marriage contracts. The girls were smirking and jumping for joy. Only 8 contracts were signed, Lord Hokage. Who is the 9th? The Kyuubi is the 9th individual, the Hokage grinned. She used a genjutsu to cover the room so no one would notice, and then she took Naruto to the Kitsune realm before the council meeting started. According to Kitsune, you are formally their mate as soon as they tell you their name. Kyuubi only revealed her name to Naruto. When they return to the Kitsune realm tonight, he will formally be sworn in as her mate. Apart from that, though, Naruto's harem now has just one spot available. In addition to signing the contracts and completing the last documents, this meeting is adjourned. Naruto will be here in a few minutes to sign the contracts. The women and girls who had been assigned to Naruto's harem were all overjoyed because they were going to marry the man they loved and were discussing their future plans when the door opened to reveal a blushing Naruto and a giggling Kushina. The girls all turned to look at Kushina, and when they looked at Naruto, they saw him blush even more. Kushina approached the girls and said, "I just thought it would be fun to tease him on the possibilities of a harem." Naruto turned tomato red before he chose to sit down and begin signing the contracts. 3 hours later, time has passed. As he was about to go to sleep, Kaisei tapped him on the shoulder. Naruto was reading the final contract, which said that Hana Inuzuka, Haku Momochi, Hanada Hyuga, Enko Midarashi, Kurenai Yuhi, Yuga Uzuki, Suzuri Uchiha, Ayame Ichiraku, Kaisei Kitsune, and one more person to be added later were officially betrothed to Naruto Uzumaki. He read the contract several times before signing the paper in blood. The contract that would be kept under lock and key in the Uzumaki Namikaze compound. He turned to face her amber eyes and said, "It's time." Naruto woke up instantly, aware that the decision about whether or not he was married to Kaisei-chan was imminent. She led him to a closet and used the same hand seals as before, opening the door and dragging him inside, where he was greeted by the same rush as before. When the rush subsided, he opened his eyes to discover that he was indeed in the Kitsune realm, with the main difference being that there appeared to be trees growing out of the waterfall in a manner that resembled paths. He did not think about this for long, though, as Kaisei pulled him back to the top of the spiral. As they ascended the stairs to the summit, the spiral appeared to glow. Naruto saw that the branches emerging from the waterfall were arranged like a mass council room, but before he could question why, Kaisei flared her chakra and slammed her palms in the center of the pedestal holding them. As soon as she started pouring her chakra in, a seal appeared on the ground. After a minute of the seal going white, she said, I, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, have selected a mate. I call forth the council and clan to discuss my terms. Not even a moment after she finished did places above the roots growing out of the waterfall open in the shape of an arch. Not even a second after did a large amount of foxes start running out. The foxes varied from white to red, some were even dull lavender. They ran to the branches that were directly in front of the arch, they gathered in an organized group before they sat down. Naruto could now see that each one was about the size of a horse. He was about to say something before the foxes began to change. Their fur receded until it only covered their head, ears, and tails. He noticed that they all held an aura of strength and superiority, yet they did not seem arrogant in their power. He saw that not one of them was the same. In fact, each had unique traits that set them apart. They all wore silk kimonos with fox designs in the stitching. They all finished their transformation when they sat down on their knees with their tails falling beside them. Naruto then turned around when he heard a mass padding of feet to see a multicolored mass heading straight for the spiral before stopping. They went through the same process that the others had gone through. They all looked to be low-class kitsune. He turned around to look at who he assumed was the Kitsune Council to begin. He stood there until a wide arch in the waterfall opened to reveal a doorway, and two imposing figures emerged. A man with long silver hair and a proud demeanor, wearing a white battle kimono with red fox designs on the fabric, and a sword that seemed to glow in the moonlight. He was pale but not ghostly, with slit green eyes. Think of Sephiroth wearing Sesshomaru's kimono and the Shodem's shoulder and chest armor. See Sephiroth. The other was a woman, pale but darker than the man next to her, with crimson red hair that fell past her back, a lovely white kimono embroidered with flowers, and a long staff on her back covered in elaborate golden patterns. Her eyes were purple with a black slit. When the two reached the front of the platform made by the roots, two seats appeared out of thin air, and they each took a seat. There was silence until the man got up and grinned, saying, Kyuubi, it has been too long, my child. Naruto stared at the man who appeared to smirk at him, and when those eyes met his own, he became anxious. Naruto was shocked to learn that this man, who exuded a sense of power that would make the Sandaime blush, was Kaisei, Chan's father. After he had finished staring into Naruto's eyes, he grinned and said, though I am curious as to what the terms you were speaking of are, daughter. Kaisei gulped instantly and approached the pedestal's edge, where she knelt. Honorable Council, you informed me that I would have to select a mate in order to carry on my legacy because I am the Kitsune clan's heir apparent. I had been unable to fall in love for the past 107 years until I was imprisoned inside Naruto Uzumaki. I was sealed inside him when Madara Uchiha, Naruto gritted his teeth at the name, forced me to attack Konoha by using a summoning jutsu and his eternal Mangekyo. Naruto's village despised him because he had sealed me inside of him. The council was impressed by her conviction as she said, I have terms that I wish to make known due to circumstances surrounding my intended lover. The council immediately gave Kaisei a calculating look. I fell in love with him because no matter what the villagers did to him, he refused to break under their pressure. Her father appeared composed, but it was clear that he was excited for some reason. He merely grinned and said, please state the conditions and circumstances surrounding your intended mate. The council was shocked when Kaisei stood up from her kneeling position and said, Honorable Council, Father, and Mother. My intended mate is the only possessor of all four of the great dojutsu. I found a way to give him all four dojutsus. I felt I owed him at least that for how terrible his life has been. The council was shocked. How bad could his life have been for her to take such drastic action? Would it be possible for us to witness this boy's life, my child? Her dad wanted to know how awful his life had been. Kaisei cringed because she didn't want to give away Naruto's life without his permission. She was about to say, yes, she may reveal my past, but I do not wish for any of your pity. Then, after looking at Naruto, who turned to face her and nodded his head, Kaisei sighed and started a series of hand seals. She slammed her palm on the ground, and the waterfall started to shift and form a visual into Naruto's memories. The entire Kitsune population was appalled when the memories started to play, and the council started to yell in rage after the memories were finished. How foolish of them. Even the most vile demons do not mistreat their young like this. Kaisei's mother, who appeared to be furious about what the humans had done to her daughter's choice, was the one who yelled this. I agree, was said by a large male Kitsune elder wearing old war armor, carrying a naginata on his back with a jade kitsune encrusted on the blade. The kitsune was bigger than Kaisei. Chan's father, and he had long, ponytail styled jade green hair. Even the most callous demons would have tried to kill a child. I propose that we go down there and kill those idiots like the animals they are. The council gave this a lot of approval. A human had just defended a village that had done worse to him than they themselves did to their enemies. And besides, Naruto looked up with a noticeable amount of chakra running off him. If you commit a total genocide, then you will be no better than they are. The council was shocked to see the blonde child trembling in anger and said, "None of you will go down there to hurt anyone. I may have been beaten into submission by the thrice-damned villagers, but I will not allow any of you to touch them." He was correct. The council looked down at this. They would be bringing themselves down to the level of humans if they committed mass murder. However, they couldn't understand why he didn't have any scars. "Excuse me, Naruto," Kaisei's mother said, "why is it that you have no scars?" The council turned to Naruto, who sighed. They were perplexed when they watched him start to take off his tops until a shimmer appeared all over his body. The child had more scars than the council's war hawk, which infuriated the council. When they saw his memories on the waterfall, all of the kitsune below them were already furious with the humans. They started to question why they hadn't erased the scars. Before noticing Naruto's eyes, all four of them, the council gazed at his scars. Kaisei's dad laughed, "So that's how you gave him all four bloodlines. He must have already had them in his system. I'm assuming this involves those terms you were speaking of earlier." Kaisei continued by outlining all of the events leading up to that moment. The council discussed the best course of action. At last, they made a choice. "Very well, Naruto Uzumaki, as of this moment, you are now married to the heiress, Kaisei Kitsune. An official ceremony will be held, but before we officially inaugurate this ceremony, is there any of the Kitsune clan who wishes to object to this marriage?" The marriage appeared to be uncontested by any member of the Kitsune clan. Someone said, "I object." Just as the council was ready to start the formal ceremony, the council sneered and turned to face the speaker. The Kitsune family viewed the person who spoke as a disgrace. In his lifetime, he had committed more crimes than they wanted to recall. Naruto and Kaisei turned around, and Kaisei visibly trembled with anger upon seeing the Kitsune. He was a tall Kitsune with a black sweeper coat. His pants were obviously made of another demon's hide, which is a reprehensible thing according to Kitsune ethics. He wore a pair of black combat boots and had black hair pulled back. He carried a weapon, just like every other Kitsune he had seen so far, with the exception of Kaisei, Chan. Although it looked to be made of bones, his weapon looked like a club. His left eye bore a huge slash mark across his face. There were two different colors in his eyes, a sickly yellow and a dark purple. In addition, he had a big scar that extended from his left ear to the corner of his mouth. His long fangs were visible in his smirk. However, Naruto's first observation was that this Kitsune was actually a black Kyuubi. "For what reason do you wish to challenge my daughter's marriage to this young man?" Kaisei, Chan's father, was not pleased with the council's extreme impatience with this Kitsune. A mauve-furred Kitsune elder with black tips interrupted the black Kitsune's tirade. "Honorable Kitsune Sama, honorable council, my fellow Kitsunes, why should we allow the marriage between the heiress and a human? How do we know that the human will only use her to breed his race more soldiers that would be destructive to our kind? Besides, he is already betrothed to 8 other women. Why should the heiress be thrown in? I believe that I would make a silence." The Kitsune was carrying a big broadsword. There was something sinister about the blade itself. The Kitsune elder said, "I will not hear another word. Odaku, corruption. You have shown all of us that you are incapable of being a proper mate. This will be the 7th time you have argued against a female Kitsune's choice of a mate, and every time you challenge the chosen for the girl's hand in marriage. You then kill the chosen, mate with the vixen, and then once you feel she has no more use, you then kill her. Due to Kitsune law we cannot interfere with that, but I refuse to allow you to do this again." The elder was very upset. He hated the tainted Kitsune with all his heart. "But Lord Ankoku, darkness, Kitsune law states that we are allowed to challenge for the vixen's hand in marriage. I merely thought that I would make a much better choice for them. And I killed the vixens, because they dissatisfied me." The vixens were all in a fit of rage. This fool. He looked up at the pedestal directly into Naruto's 4 eyes and said, "And as it is my right to ask for this challenge, I challenge Naruto Uzumaki for Kyuubi's hand in marriage." "What would happen if I refuse the challenge?" asked Naruto, as Kaisei clenched his hand. Naruto looked back at Odaku after Kaisei looked down at him and said, "If you refuse the challenge, then I am automatically married to him." Naruto started down the spiral, pondering, "Odaku, I accept your challenge." He was aware that Kaisei, Chan and this Kitsune were on an equal footing. Also, Suzuri mentioned something because he was a black kitsune. According to her, the Shodem engaged Madara and a black Kyuubi in combat. Was this the same kitsune, he wondered? He didn't have time to think about this because he was crossing the stepping stones leading to the spiral almost immediately after he started to descend. As he produced his blood stained bone club, he glanced to see Odaku's gold and purple eyes. Odaku was getting irritable, but he wanted to make the most of this. You know, human, this club has killed 6 chosen kitsune, but it has never tasted the blood of a human chosen before, plus it has never tasted the blood of one who possess all 4 great dojutsu. I will not allow you to do to Kaisei-chan what you have done to all the other vixens who you forced yourself upon. I understand this is a fight to the death. I intend to end you for your sins, Odaku. As Naruto sealed his hands, Odaku merely grinned. Chakra swirled around him while his eyes were closed. His eyes opened in an instant, demonstrating that his dojutsu was in its first stage. Then, as a black chakra whirled around him, Odaku put his hands in the serpent seal. He closed his eyes as well, and a moment later they opened to show that they were glowing the same color as the eyes themselves. As Kitsune Sama and his spouse ascended the pedestal, the council stood. The match between Naruto Uzumaki and Odaku Hajime. Naruto and Odaku lunged at one another with their weapons drawn and their eyes locked in an instant. The battle between the talented Shigen and the sinful Kyuubi was about to start. Kaisei saw the man she loved and another kitsune compete for her hand in marriage. Even if Odaku prevailed, he would never be able to mate with her, but Naruto had very little chance of surviving his battle with the evil Kyuubi. Although Naruto had never faced a kitsune before, she was aware that she could kill Odaku. As Naruto and Odaku slammed their weapons into one another, Kaisei turned back to the field. Odaku vs Naruto, Clang. Odaku's Bone Club and Naruto's Mizu-Oni were engaged in combat. Odaku gave Naruto a tail while grinning. When he saw this, he used his Mizu-Oni to push off the Bone Club in order to get some distance. Right where he stood, the tail dug into the earth. He took up his Mizu-Oni and charged back at the black Kyuubi, letting out a sigh of relief and saying, "Gotta thank Zabuza for those quick sword lessons." Naruto fell forward as Odaku effortlessly parried his blade with his own claws. Odaku used this opportunity to strike Naruto with the club. Mizu-Oni blocked access to the club. Odaku raised 3 tails to impale Naruto after the two clashed swords. He fired them forward, aiming each one at a specific spot to ensure the blonde couldn't get away. He was just a couple of feet away. Naruto saw the tails approaching him directly. He smirked to himself as he considered this. What the fuck am I going to do? I can't escape this one. Think, Naruto, think. How the hell are you going to get rid of those tails before they hit you? He thought. Kamui was Naruto's cry, and Odaku was a foot away. Odaku's 3 tails were in excruciating pain right away. Half of the 3 tails were gone when he leapt back. Where the remaining tails were once attached, the stumps were bleeding. He turned to face Naruto and winced. A piece of his tail protruded from each of the tiny vortexes that were located exactly where his tails were aiming, and it appeared as though the vortexes were drawing it in. Before leaping at the blonde, Odaku growled at him. Naruto sent his foot out and buried it in Odaku's chest after blocking the blow with a cross block. The black Kyuubi took a step back, surprised by how powerful his kick was. Naruto managed to get his Mizu-Oni out and jump over Odaku while he was distracted. Odaku saw as Naruto slashed him across the back with the sword. Ugh! Odaku staggered ahead, sensing more than just the cut on his back. When he turned around again, he saw that the blade was dragging something, consuming the water in his body. He got to his feet and faced the blonde. How the hell can this human possibly be a match for me? I have lived for over 500 years, and never once has a human been able to do this to me. Odaku's thoughts were so intense that he was unaware of the 3 Fuma shuriken approaching him until the very last moment. With the council and Kaisei, they were all shocked because Naruto had never engaged in combat with a kitsune before, but now he was facing the most vicious Kyuubi in the clan's history. While her Naruto-kun was thrashing Odaku, Kaisei was grinning. She detested Odaku's habit of killing his partners if they ever let him down, and the fact that he would essentially degrade them as he claimed them repulsed her. When Naruto used smaller Kamui to remove some of the Odaku's tails, Lord Kitsune was intrigued. Since Odaku did not truly adhere to Kitsune laws and customs, he never liked him and frequently questioned why he was still permitted to stay in the clan. When Kaisei saw Naruto use Mizu-Oni's talent for water consumption without even understanding how to do it, he grinned. That was something she adored about him. When they chose to mate, it simply meant she could enjoy themselves more with him. As the 3 Fuma headed directly for Odaku, The council was equally impressed and grinned, but they were shocked by what transpired next. Going back to battle, Odaku had had enough. With his hands in the horse seal, he expelled a huge amount of chakra. Around him, the chakra started to dissolve into the earth. Odaku's physical appearance changed dramatically. His claws turned onyx black, his ears sharpened, and the bones in his tails became more apparent. A sickly green tint spread over his skin. With the exception of the area where the entire eye turned the same color as the pupil, his eyes stayed the same. The bones in the tails that Kamui had destroyed were growing to the same length as before, but no skin or flesh had grown to cover the bones. The tails were now healing. His lower teeth grew until they protruded from his lips. Naruto was clearly trembling, and while his second stage Byakugan was not yet active, his regular Byakugan was more than sufficient to demonstrate that Odaku had grown significantly stronger than he had previously been. "How do you like the new look, human?" Odaku asked, grinning, as he looked up and launched himself at Naruto at a much faster pace than Naruto was accustomed to. Odaku gave Naruto a backhand, which sent him sprawling 20 feet from his position. Before the club crashed into the ground, he had just enough time to avoid it. He deflected a blow from one of Odaku's bone tails. At the moment, Naruto was extremely frightened. Previously, he needed to use his first level of dojutsu to keep up with Odaku, but now he would most likely need to use his second level in order to do any damage. He was in a tight spot because, according to Kaisei-chan, his chakra stores could only use all 4 dojutsu simultaneously for a total of 5 minutes. You could almost see the malevolent dark energy tearing about him, as if the aura surrounding him wasn't enough. Despite the circumstances, the council couldn't help but chuckle at the remark regarding Odaku's second form. What the fuck is going on? Not even a minute ago I was fighting a Kyuubi with an ego. Now I'm fighting something that looks like the secret love child of Satan and some black nine-tailed fox. Everyone was shocked when Odaku said, "It's a special ability I have. Many years ago I gained the ability to absorb the powers of one demon by devouring its soul. Once I activate it, all injuries that I have received during battle are instantly healed." Odaku's eye twitched noticeably before he grinned. The soul I absorbed was that of an extremely powerful archfiend. This statement perplexed Naruto, who asked, "What the hell is an archfiend?" Odaku grinned and used a few hand seals. Kinjutsu. Konkai, soul release, forbidden art. At that point, an ether started to materialize and take on a physical form. Everyone noticed that the form appeared to be surrounded by a number of chains. A physical form became discernible after a few more seconds. The current leader of one of the 7 fiend clans was standing there, chained. When the Kitsune clan traveled to the Archfiend realm to form an alliance 7 years ago, he vanished. When the Kitsune clan was held responsible for his disappearance, the alliance failed, and the 2 clans have been at odds ever since. "Odaku, it was you who kidnapped the Archfiend of Pride?" a female Kitsune elder in a floral kimono said as she rose to her feet. Infuriating the council, Odaku snorted, "So what? I would suggest you shut your mouth, wench, before I decide to come up there and challenge you for your seat." Odaku has been becoming more and more corrupt, and this was the last straw. Odaku merely sneered at Lady Kitsune as she stood up and said, "Odaku, you cost the Kitsune clan an alliance with the Fiend clans. Not only have you disgraced yourself in Kitsune law, but you also essentially betrayed us when you kidnapped the current leader of Pride. As if I care, I saw a chance for power, and I took it. How do you think I turned into a Kyuubi when I was born a disgusting Hanyu?" Many of the Kitsune grumbled. In contrast to some clans, Kitsune did not avoid family members who had human ancestry. "Hanyu, what the hell is this guy talking about, and what is this about the Fiend clan? I seriously would love to know what is going on around here so I can finish this fight and take Kaisei out to dinner." Kaisei blushed at this remark, but she disguised it right away because she knew Naruto was in serious danger. Lord Kitsune was digging his claws into his palms as Odaku turned to face the blonde and said, "I'll tell you what is going on here, Ninjin. In the clan, calling someone Ninjin was considered an insult. I was not born of Kitsune blood, or at least not full Kitsune blood. My mother was a very lustful Kitsune, while my father was a very kind man. My mother fell for the man and immediately seduced him. A year into their relationship they married, and a month after she became pregnant with me." Odaku became quiet at this juncture. "On the day of my birth, a group of humans went on a fox hunt. My mother was pregnant and had gone into labor, and they intended to kill her and me. But my father managed to drive them off. He came back to my mother, dying in her arms. The group found my mother, but was unable to kill her. She had gone into her fox form as soon as I had finally left her womb, and she immediately used Kitsune Bai to end their miserable lives. but she ended up setting the house on fire. She managed to bring my father's corpse and lay with it one last time while wrapping her tails around me for protection. By morning, I had been baptized in the blood and ashes of my own parents. Odaku let out a sigh and went on. I spent years wandering around, killing for food, stealing for wealth and warmth, until I grew strong enough to fight off lower demons, and began devouring them. By the time I had reached 100 years of age, I could take on even the strongest of lesser demons. I even fashioned a weapon from the spine of an ogre demon who thought I would taste good. Not more than 80 years ago, I saw the founding of your village, Konoha. I had seen many things happen in life, but the founding clans actually working together for a common goal. Now that was something I did not expect. After 20 years I was approached with an offer, by Madara Uchiha. Naruto's eyes grew wide with rage. He offered to rid me of my human blood by using a forbidden demonic jutsu created by an aged devil. I would become a full kitsune, and gain all the powers that one at my age could receive. And all I had to do was fight for him 2 times. The first time I fought for him was when he battled Hashirama Senju, one whose clan was blessed by the forest branch of the Kitsunes, and the second time was only 40 years ago, when he asked me to help him raze Whirlpool Country to the ground. Quietness with anger visible in his eyes, Naruto turned to face the Kitsune. This person was in charge of his clan's complete genocide. He gripped his sword tightly enough to cause a slight creak in the metal as he gazed down at the ground. No, holding back was the only thing on his mind as Naruto jerked his head up and revealed his second stage eyes. Alongside Kaisei, startled, Kaisei activated the second levels of all 4 of his dojutsu. Before his chakra ran out, he could only keep them active for 5 minutes in total. Additionally, he was probably going to employ the dojutsu's hajutsu. Naruto, are you crazy? You will burn up all of your chakra if you use those for too long. Naruto. Though he would later come to regret it greatly, Naruto ignored Kaisei when he heard her and was about to charge in to attack Odaku when he noticed something. The chains holding the strange demon thing were connected to Odaku, and the chains were giving him the energy of the Archfiend. Naruto smirked, trying to figure out how he could use that to his advantage, and decided it was time for some classic Kage Bunshin. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In front of Naruto were 50 clones that charged at Odaku from different sides. 5 jumped in the air and tried to grab Odaku by the hair. They were cut to pieces by Odaku's bone tails. Anther 10 threw shuriken to his back while 5 threw kunais with explosive tags at his front. Odaku raised his tails and knocked them back at the users. His left 30 clones to start engaging him hand-to-hand combat. The 30 clones ducked and weaved inside his guard, getting in a few hits. But Odaku just kept slicing the clones until only 5 remained. The 5 charged at his front. Odaku was about to slice the one to his left, but was stopped as the one to his right threw an explosive note. He blocked the note with his bone tail. He turned to destroy the clone to find it was gone. He looked around him before feeling something grabbing his legs. He looked down to see 2 hands grab his legs before he was stabbed into his back with a kunai. He slashed the clones and saw the last 3 heading towards him. He wrapped all 3 of his bone tails together and sent them right at the 3 clones. He smirked thinking that they would all be destroyed, until he saw they were carrying something. It was a chain, and it was the chain that connected him and the Archfiend. He did not have time to stop the attack and ended up shattering the chain, freeing the Archfiend. The Archfiend's chains started to burn and wither before breaking as it spread its wings. Now that the chains were gone, you could actually see it. Its skin was a sickly white color, and red muscles were visible in an organized pattern all over his body. Spikes were also protruding from his body. His wings were the same color and big enough to give him flight. His head looked like an old rounded crown, but it was obviously a part of his body. And the spikes around his neck formed like a collar, but it was obvious that it was a part of his body. The Archfiend stood with an aura that screamed pride. Well, if it isn't the coward Kitsune, he said to Odaku. Odaku stared back at the blonde and said, "How did you know you needed my tails to cut through that chain?" He was furious, but he stopped instantly when he felt excruciating pain. He looked to see that his changes were now reversing and that his bone-based tails were rotting away, damaging his body. Everyone started to perspire, and some people started laughing when Naruto said, "Actually, I had you cut them because I didn't have anything sharp enough to cut it with." Naruto looked sheepish. "You mean to tell me that you didn't even know that you needed to use one of my bone tails to cut the chain? And that you tricked me into destroying the chain without even figuring out what it would take to break it because you didn't have a sharp enough object?" asked Odaku, slack-jawed. Before scowling at the Kitsune, Naruto nodded his head and said, "Pretty much, yeah. I will win this fight. For the family you killed, for the villain you helped, but most importantly, for Kaisei-chan." Naruto, who had deactivated his bloodlines and was now only using his special blade, swung his sword across the Kyuubi's chest as he launched himself at him. Clinging to his still bleeding wound, Odaku slumped to the ground and roared, "I refuse to lose to some ninjin." He smashed his hands into the dragon seal and released more Yuki than he could have imagined. Odaku started to scream in agony as his body started to change and warp into a fox-like form, growing to the height of a 5-story building. When his transformation was complete, he was standing there in his full fox form, his eyes blood red, his fur a sickening black color with bloodstains all over it, his claws yellow, and the only tails he had left were 6 full ones and 3 stumps. He raised his claw and smashed it into the ground in front of Naruto, sending him flying backwards. "Man, how the hell am I going to fight a fox-formed Kyuubi?" "Kaisei-chan told me that they're at their strongest in fox form," Naruto said, picking up his sword and looking at his seal, which now appeared to be glowing. "It's now or never." Naruto sliced his palm and applied blood to the seal before running through a set of hand seals and yelling, "Kachiyose no Jutsu." A huge puff of white smoke filled the room, revealing a giant lizard with spikes covering its entire back. Its eyes were the Rinnegan, but it felt like it had a soul. It had 8 legs in total. Looking up at Naruto, the lizard said, "Naruto, what do you want? This time, hopefully, I can fight. Since you revived me, you haven't allowed me to go play." The newly named Armorous grinned before turning back to face Odaku. Naruto looked directly into the lizard's eyes and said, "Armorous, I need you to get me close enough to Odaku over there so I can finish him off." Armorous smirked and tackled Odaku to give Naruto more room to finish him. "Alright Naruto, hold on." He ran at the giant fox and bit into its front leg, causing it to scream in agony before attempting to bite the lizard, only to end up with thorns in its mouth. "Naruto, finish him, now," was the last thing he managed to get out of the window. After jumping off Armorous's head and running directly across Odaku's snout, he pulled out the Mizu-Oni and leapt into the air. The blade glowed and he swung it above his head, aiming it directly at the spot between Odaku's eyes. He screamed, "Suiten! Suishoha!" and as he did so, a huge tidal wave emerged from the blade before it started to spin and spiral into a drill. Naruto made one final swing of the sword as it plowed into the space between Odaku's eyes, drilling a hole directly into the brain cavity. Odaku screamed in agony. The last attack may not have struck his brain, but it hurt like a bitch. He fell back as Naruto landed back on his snout, snarling, unable to speak in fox form. Naruto finished the hand seals and yelled, "Kaden! Fenikusu Bakuden!" He blew out an elephant-sized plume of fire as it started to form a bird-like shape, which eventually turned out to be a phoenix, screeching as it flew forward. Time seemed to slow for Odaku as he had his last thoughts. "This is how I die." Just as the phoenix entered the brain cavity, Naruto sealed his hands in a serpent, Katsu. Boom! Odaku lurched back as the phoenix exploded in his head, his eyes burning and his mouth smoking. His chest started to burn, and a second later, his eyes and mouth were blazing. He used what little breath he had left to roar his pain and agony, and when he was finally quiet, he slumped to the ground, dead. As the body started to crumble from the heat, Naruto leapt off of it and snorted in satisfaction. "Is it hot here or what?" He began walking back to the spiral when he felt something behind him. He turned around and was barely able to dodge a bone club being aimed right at him. Naruto looked back to see that Odaku was climbing out of the ashes. Naruto was shocked. He sent an explosive fireball into the guy's skull. How the hell does someone survive that? How the hell are you still alive after that? Evidently not feeling well, Odaku grinned and said, "Did you not hear my story? I grew up eating other demons. One of those demons could reincarnate 3 times. Damn it. I may be able to give myself a second chance at life, but I still have a good amount of the injuries." Odaku attempted to move but instantly passed out when his legs started to convulse. "I gained that ability as well when I devoured his remains." Odaku, for the crimes of kidnapping, murder, and violation of the laws of nature, you are to be condemned for execution as decreed by the council and Lord and Lady Kitsune. Odaku merely grinned as a group of kitsune with swords drawn surrounded him. "I don't believe that." When Odaku put his hands in a bird seal, he vanished in a burst of black flames, leaving behind only a single black kitsune tail when the kitsune ran to where he was. Kaisei looked at her without giving away the question, saying, "That Kaisei was Shippo Senku. It allows you to escape any situation by transporting them to nearest safe location, all at the cost of 1 tail." Lord Kitsune smashed his hand into the ground and said, "Damn it, I forgot he knew that trick." As a result, Odaku is now at the level of a 5-tailed fox, which will make him much easier to deal with in the future. Kaisei was pleased with this and grinned as she turned to face her Naruto-kun, who had just defeated an opponent of Kyuubi level, significantly reduced that opponent's power, and learned what had happened to the Archfiend of Pride. She was about to start walking down when she heard clapping and turned to see that the Archfiend of Pride was clapping, and not in an offensive manner. Still clapping, the Archfiend of Pride approached Naruto and said, "I must say, I'm impressed. You repelled a foe who was far stronger and more skilled than you, and you were able to release me from his hold." The Archfiend scratched the back of his head. That idiot only succeeded in obtaining my powers because he had backup. The Archfiend was now releasing a mass of energy that was beginning to frighten Naruto, so he stopped and said, "I apologize, Naruto. I curse those damn traitors to our clan. Where are my manners, though? I am Shingai Uha, the leader of the Fiend clan of Pride." The Archfiend stepped back and made a respectful bow, similar to how Anyus does in Devil May Cry 4. He stood up and looked at the still frightened Naruto. "And I must say that even as proud as I am, I can't help but envy your ability to be able to defeat an opponent that I could not." Turning back to face a wide-eyed Naruto, Shingai said to the Kitsune Council, "I wish to propose a proper alliance between our two clans, and I believe Naruto will suffice for the alliance." "What? I apologize, but could you please assure me that this won't happen each time I save a life? Really, I will stop saving people if they want me to start getting married in order to repay them." Naruto heard the Archfiend laughing. "No, Naruto, fiends are incapable of getting married or having children. We do not marry our own kind off, even though I acknowledge that occasionally we do have sexual desires that need to be satisfied. No, we mean an alliance in which you will be married to the Kitsune clan's heiress and we will provide you with something to prove that you are the alliance's binding party. Unfortunately, your child will not inherit any of your bloodlines, but your first child with the heiress will have the strengths of the Kitsune and the fiends. This only applies to your first child." With a sigh of relief, Naruto said, "This alliance also applies to Konoha, as well as any villages and countries that they are allied with." He already had someone in mind and didn't want to fill that vacant position on the contract. Kaisei rushed in and glomped Naruto, saying, "You fool, please don't do that ever again. Do you hear me?" Naruto rapidly nodded his head. Kaisei smiled before capturing his lips in a passionate kiss. Naruto was wide-eyed and was rapidly looking around at the snickering Kitsune around him. 5 minutes later, Kaisei needed fresh air. Seeing all the Kitsune snickering around her, she blushed before burying her head in Naruto's chest. Naruto wanted to scream, "Kawaii," but thought it would only make things worse for him. "Well, it looks like I will be calling you son.in.law, they said as they stood up and approached Lady and Lord Kitsune. Afraid of the consequences of forgetting, Naruto smiled nervously and said, "I expect you both to be here in a week to finalize the marriage through a special Kitsune ceremony." The two of them turned around and returned to Konoha through the gate. Alongside Odaku was currently on his way to locate some old friends, and he would undoubtedly need assistance when he faced that blonde again. That Gaki had defeated him when his strength was at Kyuubi level, but now that he was at Gobi level, things would be more difficult. Eventually, he located what he was looking for, a cave directly beneath an old volcano. He followed the tunnel and a maze. When he arrived at the center of the volcano 30 minutes later, he saw that it was the fiends who had assisted him in defeating Shingai, and he jumped onto a circular platform with a throne composed of rocks and lava stones. "I see that you remain loyal to me, good," he said, as 3 more people emerged from behind some pillars. The fiends did not speak, and they all had blank expressions on their faces. They were all triplets, so they did not look different from one another. He approached his throne and sat down, saying, "I suggest you 3 prepare more of that delightful serum. 3 mindless fiends won't be enough to take on the Kitsune and Fiend clans." The 3 fiends bowed before rushing off to do their work. Odaku simply used his dark fire abilities to create a 3D replica of Naruto. Soon, he crushed the replica in his bare hands. Odaku grinned before falling asleep while he awaited the formation of his new army. Alongside Naruto just returned to Konoha, Naruto and Kaisei were now strolling around with Kushina in search of a decent restaurant, and Naruto had put on the new outfit he had made for him in Wave. They were strolling through the Konoha Mall district when Kushina stopped them, saying, "I'm going to go get some new clothes." He was wearing a black sleeveless shirt that covered his abdomen and exposed most of his shoulders, full-length pants that were tucked into his shinobi sandals, a genjutsu on his face to conceal his new eyes, and a blade concealed in the sandal to provide a surprise attack. "It's not possible for me to go about in the same clothes that I've been sleeping in for the last 12 years, is it? How about you two go get some ice cream?" Kushina asked, grinning and reaching into her purse. Kaisei's lips formed a broad smile, but Naruto stayed expressionless. Kushina turned to face him and said, Mom, what is ice cream? A cat nearby stopped chasing a rat. Kaisei's jaw was almost touching the floor, and Kushina's eyes were as big as dinner plates. You've never had ice cream? Kushina was fuming inside. His life had been so miserable that he had never had ice cream. Well, no, at least not in my opinion. Ichiraku would typically rummage through a trash can and consume whatever was inside before I could get food from them. I mostly just dumpster dived for dinner, though I would occasionally sneak into farms and eat some raw eggs. Oh Naruto, I can't stand the idea that your life was so terrible. Kushina was crying in public, and everyone was staring at them. Kaisei was right there with her, and Naruto didn't even have time to anticipate his mother embracing him. With a low growl that only Kushina could hear, Naruto said, blushing, Mom, could you let go of me? You're embarrassing me. With wide eyes, Kushina glanced up at Naruto right away and asked, what did you say? Mom. No, the other part. Will you let me go? No, the other part. You're making me look foolish? Why? I'm succeeding as a mother, even though I'm embarrassing my son. Naruto had trouble breathing after Kushina glomped him between her breasts. Naruto was walking a few feet behind them when he was pulled into an alley, and he instantly assumed a defensive stance when he saw Kiba. Kushina decided to take him to an ice cream shop after practically strangling him for 5 minutes. As Kiba pulled Naruto out of the alley, he began to stare at Kushina and Kaisei, saying, Naruto, you sly dog, I can't believe you got 2 such slamming redheads. Man, the small one's cute, but man would I love to bend that tall one over a table and bang her until she screams. Kiba's fantasies were interrupted when he sensed an extreme killer intent approaching him. He turned to see Naruto with flames emanating from him, the shimmer of a genjutsu being dispelled, and his new Chigen. With a start, Naruto screamed, that's my mother you asshole, die. Naruto somehow managed to leap at Kiba, who was now running for his life and screaming like a little girl, after slicing his palm and rubbing the blood across a seal. A massive puff of smoke revealed a club covered in spikes that was more than 20 feet long.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.